Chapter 1140. However, there was still a lot of room for improvement. Cultivating more would not be bad for his strength. After all, Xiaochen was a bladesman by nature. His saber soul was the most important. 7 days later, the clouds below the flood dragon war chariot slowly dimmed until it was completely dark. Xiaochen knew that he had reached the edge of the Black Sea. The Blackwater Sea should not be far away. After thinking for a while, Xiaochen put away the flood dragon war chariot and prepared to travel the rest of the way alone. After all, there were many experts in the Black Sea. This chaotic and resource-rich sea region was very tempting. There were countless experts here. Xiaochen was far from strong enough to move about freely. It was best to keep a low profile. According to the information that Kim Tae-ho obtained, Batu was not in the Blackwater Sea but in the Dark Sea, the core of the entire Black Sea. Hence, Xiaochen did not intend to stay in this Blackwater Sea for long. If nothing unexpected happened, he would just treat it as a place to stay and familiarize himself with the environment of the Black Sea. After piercing through the clouds, Xiaochen, who was in the air, immediately felt the various negative emotions that came with his breathing: irritation, rage, massacre, and many others. His heart did not change. His saber soul flickered, and Xiaochen used his strong willpower to eliminate all these negative emotions, leaving none in his body. Dang! 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 Before Xiaochen landed on the surface of the sea, the sounds of fighting entered his ears. Squinting, Xiaochen discovered that several merchant ships of a merchant association were being attacked. The merchant group was rather large, and the merchant ships were all Sage grade. There were 10 of them, and the flagship was a King grade warship. However, the situation was not good. The densely packed small pirate ships surrounded the entire merchant group. Figures radiating baleful auras leaped and charged at the merchant ships. A ferocious-looking pirate was currently ganging up on a middle-aged man on the merchant ship's flagship, gaining the upper hand. Xiaochen had heard about the chaos of the Black Sea long ago. However, he had not expected to run into a merchant group being robbed right at the edge. After observing for a while, Xiaochen concluded that this group of pirates was not very strong. The pirate leader fighting on the flagship was only as strong as the great perfection blue-robed emperor. A moment later, he made his decision. He wasn't the kind of idiot who would rush over to save a bunch of strangers regardless of the situation when he saw something like this. However, if it was within his power, he would still lend a helping hand. After all, this group of robbing pirates did not look like good people. Xiaochen's figure flashed. His white robes looked spotless as he carried the lunar shadow saber and landed in the sky above the flagship. When the two sides saw the sudden appearance of this person, their expressions changed at the same time, and they both stopped fighting and retreated. The difference was that the burly middle-aged man revealed an expression of surprise, whereas the leader of the island was filled with killing intent and endless anger. The pirate leader wielded a heavy scarlet dragon-tooth saber. He looked at Xiaochen and said, "Where did this brat come from? Do you know the rules of the Black Sea? If you see pirates robbing and dare to help, you will be wanted by all the pirates." Xiaochen was slightly taken aback, but he laughed in his heart. Interesting. In other places, pirates were wanted, but in this place, the rules were reversed. The pirates held the upper hand. To think that they could order others to be wanted. Little brother, this is indeed the rule of the Black Sea. Once you are wanted, you will find it hard to move anywhere in the 5 seas. It is good that you have the intention. Don't get yourself involved. The middle-aged man could tell that Xiaochen's cultivation was not low. Given his young age, he should be an outstanding talent of a holy land or a noble clan. Since the middle-aged man did not know the rules of the Black Sea, he sighed and tried to persuade Xiaochen to leave. "Since you know the rules, then scram," the pirate leader said rudely with a cold smile. Xiaochen said indifferently, "This is the first time I've heard of this rule. However, if you die, I'm afraid we won't be able to send out the wanted posters." The pirate leader laughed loudly and said, "You are already a great perfection blue-robed emperor at such a young age. You must be the successor of a large faction or a holy land. I saw that it was not easy for you to cultivate, so I was being more polite to you. To think that you became so arrogant. Don't treat the Black Sea as some other place. I will only say one thing to you. The blue-robed emperors here are not to be trifled with. The pirate leader shouted coldly and charged at Xiao Chen while holding the dragon-toothed saber. The pirate leader's eyes turned scarlet. Everywhere he passed, wolf howls resounded. A huge scarlet wolf image appeared behind him. Unexpectedly, this pirate leader was a fiend race member. His bloodline seemed to have mutated, he was not a pure heavenly wolf and was even more powerful. This saber strike had an overwhelming aura, and the wolf howls were even more horrifying. It was incredibly ferocious. Just the baleful aura that flowed out was enough to make one tremble in fear. Dang! No one saw how Xiao Chen moved, but there was a melodious dragon roar. He instantly drew the lunar shadow saber and blocked the dragon-tooth saber flying at him. The dragon roar clashed with the scarlet wolf howls. Unexpectedly, their auras were equal. The other party's scarlet wolf was not intimidated by Xiao Chen's dragon might. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up. It was said that in this oceanic world, the Black Sea was the best place for the blue-robed emperor to cultivate. In order to strengthen themselves, the blue-robed emperors of various places would come here for experiential training. Furthermore, an even greater number of fugitives resided in the Black Sea all year round, making the situation of the Black Sea even more terrifying. The blue-robed emperor, which was rarely seen in the outside world, could be said to be a common sight here. Now, it looked like the rumors were true. This great perfection blue-robed emperor before him gave Xiao Chen a very different feeling. Compared to the great perfection blue-robed emperors raised in sects, this one was much more powerful. However, the more powerful, the better. That way, it would be more challenging. Xiao Chen turned around and pulled out the lunar shadow saber. At the same time, he executed flawless bright moon. A gentle moonlight appeared on the slender saber. You have some strength. No wonder you dare to be so arrogant. The pirate leader laughed strangely and spun around in the air. With every spin, he sent out a saber strike. Every time the saber light flashed, a wolf image would appear. In the blink of an eye, the pirate leader had spun around 100 times. After sending out 100 saber strikes and 100 wolves, the pirate leader completely suppressed Xiao Chen's flawless bright moon, forcing Xiao Chen to continuously retreat 100 steps. Brat, now you know that there are some problems that you should not bother with. Ha! However, there is no medicine for regret in this world. Defeat for me and hunt the world. The pirate leader laughed maniacally and suddenly revealed his true form. He turned into a scarlet wolf that stood upright and roared ferociously. Then, he swung his saber vigorously, and hundreds of wolf-shaped saber lights immediately flew at Xiao Chen. The sharp aura was like a pack of wolves on a hunt, galloping across a boundless grassland with an irresistible force. As for Xiao Chen, he was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and discovered the extraordinariness of this move. Every scarlet wolf was completely solid. Furthermore, there seemed to be qi and blood flowing in the scarlet wolves' bodies, surging with essence. Every one of them continuously absorbed the berserk massacre qi unique to the air of the Black Sea. With every second that passed, their bodies grew larger. By the time they arrived in front of Xiao Chen, each and every one of them was as big as a mountain. Their bodies had mutated to an extremely terrifying extent. Their fur had turned into sharp blood blades, and their eyes were scarlet red. It's over. Seeing the pack of wolves swallow up Xiao Chen, the middle-aged man from the merchant group, the blue-robed emperor, revealed a bitter expression. He was somewhat surprised that this mission would be so difficult. It looked like not only would he fail, but he would also implicate an outstanding young talent. Xiao Chen had just entered the periphery of the Blackwater Sea when he ran into the infamous Blood Wolf pirate group. He did not know what goods they were transporting this time. Boom! Just when the middle-aged man thought that Xiao Chen, surrounded by the pack of wolves, would be devoured until not even his bones remained, 100 bolts of intense lightning suddenly shot out from the pack of wolves. A terrifying saber intent could be felt in every bolt of lightning. This is a saber soul. The saber chi has its own soul and also contains the might of the will of thunder. Otherwise, the saber intent that erupts out would not be so horrifying. The middle-aged man muttered to himself, his eyes filled with shock. What kind of genius bladesman is this? This saber soul is probably no weaker than the famous bladesmen of the older generation. Miserable howls resounded, and the pack of wolves howled in pain. Their momentum immediately shattered. Xiao Chen did not stop moving, continuing to attack, preparing to break this move in one go. Strands of azure dragon-shaped saber chi flew out of Xiao Chen's body. Eventually, 18 blue dragons surrounded Xiao Chen. The dragons roared ferociously, causing the sky to change color. Lightning flashed, thunder roared, and all sorts of mysterious phenomena flashed. Subduing dragon profound slash. When Xiao Chen chopped out, the 18 blue dragons merged into the saber, forming an azure saber light that reached the sky. The hundreds of blood wolves injured by the electric saber chi were immediately chopped into pieces by this horrifying saber light, like the autumn winds sweeping away fallen leaves. Blood could be seen connecting the blood wolves' bodies. After the electric light exploded, the blood wolves were completely severed. This was already beyond the scope of a mysterious phenomenon. Xiao Chen guessed that the pirate leader's world hunt the pirate group probably infused his chi and blood into the saber technique. If an ordinary person executed this move, they would die from blood loss before they could finish executing it. Only the pirate leader, who could turn into a blood wolf, could execute this move. The saber light did not lose momentum, continuing to hack at the pirate leader. The pirate leader held his saber horizontally to block. However, the might of Xiao Chen's move was very great. It contained all the mysteries of the dragon subduing slash. How could the pirate leader, who had lost a large amount of chi and blood, block it? Ka-cie. The dragon tooth saber instantly broke. The saber light continued to hack down, chopping the pirate leader in half. However, the pirate leader was not dead yet. The two halves of his body were still connected by blood, doing their best to merge back together. Given time, the two halves might even be able to merge back together. This life form is really tenacious. However, since you already made a move, I cannot let you live. Executing thunder dragon steps, Xiao Chen arrived on a dragon amid lightning flashes and thunder roars. He infused the power of the lightning saber soul into his saber and hacked at the pirate leader's body 9 times in a row. After the 9 saber strikes, electric light burst out, and the pirate leader's body turned into charcoal. He could no longer revive. With their leader killed, the remaining pirates immediately retreated in a fluster. The crisis of the merchant group was temporarily resolved. Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and suddenly frowned. He felt a gaze filled with heavy killing chi from 50 kilometers away. Even from 50 kilometers away, it made his hair stand on end. Chapter 1141. The owner of this gaze was at least a consummation blue-robed emperor. Xiao Chen's heart sank, and his thoughts raced. He had a bad feeling that his actions this time had provoked some trouble. The goods that this merchant ship was carrying might not be ordinary goods. Actually, Xiao Chen should have thought of this long ago. Even though there were many blue-robed emperors in the Black Sea, they should not have run into a great perfection blue-robed emperor pirate the moment they arrived. The problem still lay with this ship. Thank you for your help, young hero. I am very grateful. I am very grateful, the middle-aged blue-robed emperor said with a smile as he flew over to Xiao Chen's side. Xiao Chen's expression did not change. He said calmly, "It is within my capabilities. If I can, I will help. There is no need to be so polite. I have a presumptuous request. Young hero should be going to Blackwater City, right? How about we travel together?" The middle-aged blue-robed emperor asked in anticipation. Blackwater City was located on Blackwater Island. It was the largest city in the entire Blackwater Sea. There were no less than 100 million people in the city. Blackwater Island was astonishingly large. Although it was an island, it was no smaller than a nation in the Sky Dome realm. Since Xiao Qin had arrived at the Blackwater Sea, he naturally could not avoid going to this large city to broaden his horizons. However, Xiao Qin did not wish to have anything to do with this merchant group. Xiao Qin looked at the ship. He was not in a rush to reply. Instead, he asked, "Might I know what goods your ship is carrying?" The middle-aged blue-robed emperor's gaze paused for a moment. His expression changed unnaturally as he replied, "Nothing much. It is just some items that the Black Sea urgently lacks. Sunstone, secret silver, black gold, and the like." When Xiao Qin saw the other party's expression, he smiled and asked, "Is that so?" The middle-aged blue-robed emperor sighed and said, "Very well, I'll be honest. My merchant group received a large order. I do not know what it is exactly, but it is very large. There are a lot of them, and it took several large ships to barely fit them all. I didn't expect to run into trouble as soon as we entered the Black Sea. I would like to hire you as a guard for our caravan." Xiao Qin decisively refused. "Don't worry, nothing will happen to the goods on the ship. There should be a hidden expert on your ship whose strength is a level higher than mine." The middle-aged blue-robed emperor asked curiously, "A master? Why didn't I know about this?" The middle-aged blue-robed emperor found it strange that Xiao Qin knew better than him whether there were any experts on his ship or not. Moreover, Xiao Qin was so sure about it. "Young hero, you must be joking," the middle-aged blue-robed emperor said doubtfully. Xiao Qin muttered to himself. He was very sure of his guess. If there were no experts on the ship, it would be hard to explain. Why didn't that mysterious person from 100 miles away personally make a move and snatch away the goods that they wanted? There had to be someone on the ship that mysterious person feared. That was why he did not dare to make a move. That was the only explanation. Xiao Qin did not answer the middle-aged blue-robed emperor's question. He glanced at the merchant ship and said in a neutral tone, "Sir, since you are on the merchant ship, why don't you show yourself and let this uncle feel at ease?" Ha ha ha. Young people really have good eyes. If I still don't show myself, I will look bad. Amid loud laughter, a white-haired old man with a healthy complexion walked out of the ship's hold. The middle-aged blue-robed emperor said in shock, "Senior Ma." The middle-aged blue-robed emperor recognized this person. He was an old man that his employer had left behind to look after the goods. This old man was merely a superior-grade martial sage, not even comparable to the middle-aged blue-robed emperor. How could this old man be an expert? Xiao Qin sent out his mental energy from his sea of consciousness. Indeed, Senior Ma was only a superior-grade martial sage. However, the instant Xiao Qin withdrew his mental energy, Senior Ma gave off an aura as deep as the sea. It was the blue-robed emperor's consummation cultivation. Furthermore, this was not the blue-robed emperor who cultivated an earth-ranked cultivation technique. What he cultivated was the peak heaven-ranked cultivation technique. Otherwise, his aura would not be so terrifying. The instant Senior Ma appeared, the middle-aged blue-robed emperor nearly fell from the sky. Senior Ma did not look at the middle-aged blue-robed emperor. Instead, he went straight to Xiao Qin and asked doubtfully, "Young man, which holy land are you from?" "That's not right. You use a saber. There does not seem to be any holy scions who use a saber. Could you be a disciple of the Northern Sea Saber Sovereign, the Inferno Saber Sovereign, or the Ice Saber Sovereign?" At first glance, Senior Ma eliminated Xiao Qin from the list of local cultivators of the Black Sea. This was because Senior Ma had lived in the Black Sea for hundreds of years. He knew the information of the peak experts and young outstanding talents of the various sea domains of the Black Sea like the back of his hand. None of them matched Xiao Qin's description. In that case, Xiao Qin could only be a cultivator from the outside world. Senior Ma did not know much about the cultivators of the heavenly starry ocean, so he could only make a rough guess. Xiao Qin smiled and said, "Old sir, there is no need to guess. I come from the Kunlun continent. Oh, the Kunlun continent? In that case, you must be a disciple of the powerful saber sovereign, Wu Shaotian. My clan's ancestor once had a friendship with the powerful saber sovereign, Wu Shaotian. Senior Ma suddenly understood. He immediately determined Xiao Chen's identity. He had to be the disciple of the saber sovereign, Wu Shaotian. Otherwise, how could Xiao Chen cultivate a 40% comprehended saber soul at such a young age, comparable to some of the older generation bladesmen? How about it? Since you are going to Blackwater City as well, let's go together, Senior Ma invited. Xiao Chen did not comment on Senior Ma's guess. He shook his head and said, "Sorry, I'm used to traveling alone. I'm afraid I cannot agree to Senior's request." It was clear that this ship carried extraordinary goods and had great implications. How could Xiao Chen continue to wade into such murky waters? That is somewhat unfortunate. I have an invitation here. If young master is free, you can come to our Jadeite Mountain Manor on the 15th of next month to attend a ceremony. Senior Ma did not insist. He took out an invitation from his sleeve and handed it to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen received it and took a look. The invitation did not specify what ceremony it was, making it seem somewhat mysterious. Xiao Chen knew a little about the Jadeite Mountain Manor. It was rather famous in the Blackwater Sea, not because the current manor lord was very strong. Instead, it was because the current manor lord's grandfather was a sovereign martial emperor known as the Jadeite Sovereign. Although the Jadeite Mountain Manor was only a rank 8 faction, it was very popular in the Blackwater Sea. Even some of the peak 9 ranks of the great families had to give the Jadeite sovereign a lot of face. However, as far as Xiao Chen knew, this Jadeite sovereign was not ambitious and had a rather gentle personality. The Jadeite sovereign was not very interested in developing his faction. He spent most of his time traveling the starry heavens and rarely returned to the Jadeite Mountain Manor. However, no matter how gentle the Jadeite sovereign was, he was still a sovereign martial emperor. His fame was sufficient to intimidate everyone. As Xiao Chen watched the merchant group move further away, he entered deep thought. Then, he put away the invitation and muttered to himself, "I just made a move, and I already ran into such trouble." A faction that even dares to offend the Jadeite Mountain Manor definitely has an extraordinary background. As for the middle-aged blue-robed emperor on the merchant ship, he felt so much regret that his intestines turned green. In a moment of greed, he ended up getting involved in a conflict between a large faction. Even if he could make it to Blackwater City, he might not be able to leave the Black Sea alive. Before the Heavenly Sea, Xiao Chen arrived at a small island. He prepared to rest for the night before continuing on his way. What he saw and heard on the island gave him a deeper understanding of the chaos of the Black Sea. Along the way, Xiao Chen ran into 10 odd fights. In every fight, someone would die. Human life was as cheap as grass. This was a place where one's fist did the talking. This was the undisguised law of the jungle. Most of the fights were trivial matters. Often, the slightest disagreement would lead to a fight. After living in the Black Sea for a long time and absorbing the mysterious substance in the air, one would become extremely irritable and find it hard to control one's heart. During this period, Xiao Chen also ran into some trouble. After he decisively killed a superior-grade martial sage, the problem lessened significantly. After arriving in the city, Xiao Chen found an inn to stay in. After taking a hot bath, Xiao Chen sat cross-legged on the bed and prepared to cultivate. The instant Xiao Chen closed his eyes, all sorts of mockery entered his ears. There was the sound of people fighting over the loot, men and women moaning in the same room, and miserable screams on the streets. It was very noisy, making it hard for him to calm down. After taking a deep breath, Xiao Chen treated this as a test to temper his mental state. Then, he circulated his energy and continued cultivating. Xiao Chen's cultivation of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 7th layer was almost complete. He only needed to break through 5 more meridians and undergo a lightning tribulation before he could advance to the 8th layer. For the entire night, Xiao Chen carefully tried to see if he could break through one of the bottlenecks. When the sky brightened, Xiao Chen immediately paid his bill and left, continuing his journey unhurriedly. Naturally, his destination was the largest city in the Blackwater Sea, Blackwater City. After leaving the island, Xiaoqun flew 70 or 80 kilometers close to the surface of the sea, cautiously scanning the surroundings with his spiritual sense. Finally, he stopped and landed on a protruding reef in the sea. Xiaoqun focused his spiritual sense into a line and looked carefully at the target he discovered. After a while, he withdrew his spiritual sense, and his expression turned strange. Unexpectedly, he met someone familiar here. Furthermore, it was someone he had not expected. 50 kilometers away, Yu Bingyun and a man strolled on the surface of the sea. This man was called Xia Luo, a descendant of a legendary martial emperor of the Black Sea, the Thunder Fire Sovereign. He possessed startling cultivation and was a rather famous outstanding young talent. Historically, the Thunder Fire Sovereign had once unified the Black Sea. Unfortunately, he only managed to do so for less than 100 years before his death. As a result, the Xia clan's strength plummeted. Now, it could only be considered one of the 9th ranks of the great families that was pretty strong, far from being a holy land. Xiaoqun's spiritual sense caught Xia Luo repeatedly trying to curry favor with Yu Bingyun, trying to find an opportunity to say such words. Unfortunately, Yu Bingyun maintained a distance, preventing him from doing so. Bingyun, what is your purpose? Ever since Xia Luo accidentally met Yu Bingyun on the sea, he had been shocked and immediately latched onto her, intending to use his charm to subdue this holy daughter from the heavenly starry ocean. Unfortunately, it did not seem to have any effect. Yu Bingyun said very politely, "Young Master Xia, I've said it before. It would be better to address me by my full name. My current destination is Blackwater City." What a coincidence. My destination is also Blackwater City. It looks like we can travel together, Xia Luo immediately said. Actually, his destination was not Blackwater City but a remnant at the bottom of the sea. Yu Bingyun smiled helplessly. Naturally, she knew where the coincidence came from. However, it did not matter. If the other party wanted to follow, then let him. There would always be a way to shake him off. Chapter 1142. Just at this moment, a group of pirates riding mutated beasts galloped on the surface of the sea. They rode the water from afar, kicking up huge waves. Then, they appeared as fast as lightning and blocked the two's path. Pirate robberies happened every day in the Black Sea. It was not strange at all. On the reef, Xiaoqun thought, this group of pirates is pretty strong. They should be able to force out some of Yu Bingyun's true strength. However, the situation did not develop as Xiaoqun expected. When the Thunder Fire Sovereign's descendant, Xia Luo, saw this group of pirates riding mutated beasts, he rejoiced in his heart. He had been worrying about not having a chance to show off. This group of pirates really came at the right time. Hiding the joy in his heart, Xia Luo put on a furious expression and said, "Bunch of trash. Quickly scram. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." Ha! Where did this by face come from? Are you trying to be a hero saving a damsel in distress? Kneel and beg for mercy, and we can spare your life. However, you have to leave this woman behind. That's right. We are not interested in men. If you want to live, then scram. The group of pirates guffawed, ignoring Xia Luo's words. They all looked at Yu Bingyun with glowing eyes. In their eyes, Yu Bingyun was like a fairy. Her figure was exquisite and exquisite. She had an extraordinary air, and her skin was like rosy clouds. Her beautiful eyes were like limpid autumn waters, giving her a boundless charm. The more the mighty pirate leader looked at Yu Bingyun, the more tempted he became. Eventually, he could not help roaring, "Kill this by face and snatch this woman back." Xia Luo stepped forward and blocked Yu Bingyun. He said, "Bingyun, leave these pieces of trash to me. Don't dirty your hands." Right after Xia Luo spoke, he formed hand seals and quickly threw a palm strike. Clumps of profound flame imprints flew into the bodies of the charging pirates. The profound flame imprints seemed to be incorporeal. In an instant, they entered the bodies of these pirates. No matter how they tried to block them, it was useless. These pirates found this strange. However, after they circulated their energies and discovered that there were no major problems, they continued charging over with sinister smiles. Acting all mysterious. Watch this old man tear you apart. Dozens of pirates leaped into the air and charged towards him. If he was surrounded, he would be in big trouble. Xia Luo smiled coldly and said, "Reckless. You don't even know my Xia clan's thunder fire mark. Die." With a loud shout, Xia Luo pointed a finger at the sky. A bolt of lightning streaked across the sky, followed by the sound of thunder. The instant the thunder boomed, the body of the martialist who had been imprinted by the fire seal instantly turned red. Then, there was a loud explosion. His body was like gunpowder, exploding until there was nothing left of his flesh and blood. It was a tragic sight. The rumbling thunder was like the fuse of dynamite. In an instant, more than half of the pirates surrounding Xia Luo were killed. The remaining people who did not die were frightened out of their wits. Xia Luo forced them to retreat repeatedly in a sorry state. The pirate leader on the exotic beast cried out inwardly. He hurriedly said, "Retreat." The many pirates who had long lost the will to fight immediately retreated like a receding tide, disappearing from the duo's vision. Xia Luo was in high spirits, a pleased smile on his face. He turned his head and asked, "Bingyun, are you all right?" Yu Bingyun's expression did not change at all. She said politely, "Young Master Xia, it is better to address me as Yu Bingyun. Many thanks for helping out earlier." Xia Luo's expression turned somewhat awkward. He said, "It's good that you are fine. This journey is very dangerous. Pirates come and go frequently. However, with me around, I can guarantee Miss Yu's safety." On the reef, Xiaoqin felt somewhat disappointed. If Xia Luo had not made a move, Yu Bingyun would have had to save herself. Xiaoqin would have been able to unravel the other party's mysterious veil and see how strong she was. However, this Xia Luo's martial technique also piqued Xiaoqian's curiosity. After imbuing the thunder fire mark into the martialist's body with thunder, it was incomparably profound. After thinking for a while, Xiaoqin gained some understanding of the principles of this thunder fire mark. After he figured it out, he realized that it was not as miraculous as it looked. The fire mark, which looked like it was made of good materials, would shatter the moment it came in contact with a cultivator's protective quintessence, turning into countless tiny imprints that pierced through the protective quintessence like air. After that, the imprints would stick to the cultivator's skin through the pores. Naturally, when one looked into the body, one would not discover anything strange about it. As for how to use thunder and lightning to gather these scattered imprints and explode them, one could only figure it out after reading the secret manual for the thunder fire mark. Just by observing it, one could only get a rough idea. However, for Xiaoqin to be able to see this far, he already had a way to break this thunder fire mark. This trip to the Black Sea had given Xiaoqin many pleasant surprises. This trip had not been in vain. Be it the world hunt of that pirate leader or this Xia Luo's thunder fire mark, they were all unique martial techniques that broadened his horizons. "Hey, Miss Yu, can we go now?" After dealing with the pirates, Yu Bingyun was not in a rush to leave. She seemed to have made some new discoveries, so Xia Luo asked out of curiosity. Yu Bingyun seemed to have confirmed something. She smiled and said, "There's no rush. I met a friend. Let's wait for him." "Friend? Where is he? Why don't I see him?" An anxious expression flashed in Xia Luo's eyes as he looked around. However, he did not discover Xiaoqin, who was 50 kilometers away. He did not know who Yu Bingyun was referring to. Yu Bingyun smiled faintly. Then, she turned her head and spoke in sign language. "Young Master Xiao, how much longer are you going to keep watching?" This stunned Xiaoqin, who had been observing from the reef. Even from 50 kilometers away, Yu Bingyun had discovered his presence. What sharp senses! You are much stronger than this Xia Luo. Xiaoqin muttered to himself. He guessed that Yu Bingyun must have sensed him when he used his spiritual sense to scan the other party. Since he had already been discovered, there was no need to continue hiding. Xiao Qin pushed off the water and executed Thunder Dragon steps. 3 lightning dragons swam in the water. 4 lightning dragons danced at the sides, and 3 circled above Xiao Chen's head. The Thunder Dragon steps, modified from the Blue Dragon Cloud soaring art, was mighty and more suitable for Xiao Chen. He could use it as he pleased. In combat, it was even more compatible with his martial techniques. After about 7 minutes, Xiao Chen easily arrived 50 kilometers away. He pushed off the water, and 10 lightning dragons entered his body. The mighty aura instantly vanished, demonstrating Xiao Chen's strong control over the Thunder Dragon steps. He could use it as he pleased, advancing and retreating with a thought. Xiao Chen slowly landed beside Yu Bingyun. When he landed, he did not cause any splash. He said calmly, "This is a little unexpected. Unexpectedly, I ran into Miss Yu here. Ha! Why is it that only you are allowed to come to the Black Sea for experiential training but not me? I also have the cultivation of the blue-robed emperor," Yu Bingyun said softly with a smile. "Young Master Xia, let me introduce you. This is my friend, Mo Yun, from the Kunlun continent." Mo Yun. Xiao Chen wondered why Yu Bingyun helped him hide his identity. However, this was fine. Although not many people knew about the Blue Dragon King in the Black Sea, he could use an alias to save himself some trouble. Xiao Chen did not deny it, taking it as acquiescence. Xia Luo smiled straightforwardly. After greeting Xiao Chen, he asked, "I wonder, where is Brother Mo's destination?" "Blackwater City," Xiao Chen answered honestly. Xia Luo's expression changed, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Then, he smiled strangely and said, "Is that so? Brother Mo, think carefully and see if you remembered wrong." This was already a clear threat, telling Xiao Chen to change his itinerary and not disturb his time with Yu Bingyun. Crazy. Xiao Chen cursed in his heart. Then, he looked at the other party indifferently and said, "I know better than you whether I remembered wrong or not. There is no need for Brother Xia to worry." When Xia Luo heard this, his expression turned exceptionally sullen. Unexpectedly, this fellow did not understand his clear hint. Yu Bingyun smiled and said, "In that case, it looks like I can travel with young Master Mo on this trip to Blackwater City." As Yu Bingyun spoke, she completely ignored Xia Luo, upsetting the other party. Blackwater City Island was the core island of the Blackwater Sea. It was astonishingly vast, so vast that it could no longer be simply called an island. Even the blue-robed emperor would have to spend a lot of time to explore every place. Of course, this was just to explore every place. If one wanted to study it seriously, even 100 years would not be enough. The terrain of the island was extremely complicated. There were mountains, plains, deserts, snowy lands, and all sorts of other landforms. The ruins of the ancient era could be found everywhere, attracting many experts to adventure there. Historically, the many islands of the Black Sea had once been a complete continent. It had its own glorious period, with many heroes, overlords, powerful sovereigns, and legendary martial emperors. Stars twinkled, looking resplendent and glorious. However, as time passed, after the continent shattered, very few people remembered that period of history. Xiao Chen's group of 3 headed for Blackwater City did not move very fast. The main reason was that Xiao Chen and Yu Bingyun wanted to gain experiential training, to see what was different about the Black Sea cultivators. After walking for half a month, the group saw the outline of Blackwater Island. In this half a month, Xiao Chen had had enough of the legendary Thunder Fire Sovereign's descendant, Xia Luo. Xia Luo felt that he would definitely be able to recreate the Thunder Fire Sovereign's glorious feat one day, so he looked down on Xiao Chen from the bottom of his heart. Furthermore, Xiao Chen did not know how to adapt to circumstances, ruining his chance to be alone with Yu Bingyun. This made Xia Luo feel even more upset and depressed. If not for Yu Bingyun being present, Xia Luo would have attacked Xiao Chen long ago to teach him a lesson. There is a small town in front. We can rest there for the night and rush to Blackwater City at daybreak. My Xia clan is rather famous in Blackwater City. When we get to the city, I can introduce Miss Yu to the famous blue-robed emperor experts of Blackwater City. As Xia Luo said this, he glanced at Xiaoqin casually, putting on an aloof air. Xiaoqin felt speechless. Femme fatale. This Xia Luo looked like someone with some strength and was not stupid. However, after getting infatuated with Yu Bingyun, it was like water got into his head. Xia Luo's actions were all childish. For example, he started to flaunt his clan. This made Xiaoqin feel that it was ridiculous. Chapter 1143. Since we have arrived at Blackwater Island, let's part ways for now. I still have matters to attend to, so I won't disturb the two of you any longer. Not willing to stay any longer, Xiaoqin prepared to take his leave. Who knew? Xia Luo, who had been displeased with Xiaoqin along the way, interjected before Yu Bingyun could say anything. Young Master Mo, since we are already at Blackwater Island, why the rush to leave? Don't refuse to give me face. No matter what, I have to do my duty as a host. It was hard for me to bear with you for such a long time. Now that I've finally reached my territory, it won't be easy for me to leave. Xia Luo steeled his heart. No matter what method he had to use, he had to make Xiaoqin stay, to let him know the consequences of interrupting him. Xiaoqin looked at Xia Luo's expression. When the other party raised his eyebrows, he knew what Xia Luo was planning. Originally, he didn't want to cause any more trouble, but now he was really angry. If you want to play, I'll play with you. Let's see who cries more in the end. He immediately smiled and said, is that so? As a super city of the Black Sea, I have long been curious about Blackwater City. Since young Master Xia is willing to entertain me, I will not leave. Xia Luo sneered in his heart. You are smiling now, but when the time comes, you won't even be able to cry even if you want to. However, Xia Luo put on a warm expression. Yu Bingyun, who was at the side, was very smart. Naturally, she knew what Xia Luo was thinking. However, she did not feel worried for Xiaoqin. Given Xia Luo's level, he was too naive to think that he could play such tricks on Xiaoqin. In the heavenly starry ocean, the holy scions of the immortal Holy Lands were all traumatized by Xiaoqin. A declining clan with a glorious ancestor was far from sufficient. In her heart, she also looked forward to the matter of the heavenly origin pill that Xiaoqin left behind. However, due to Xia Luo sticking to her, it was not convenient for her to ask about it. I should have a chance to ask Xiaoqin about it when I check into the inn tonight. Night came earlier in the Black Sea than in other places. In the middle of the night, through the dark clouds, apart from a hazy bright moon, no stars could be seen. Dong dong dong. Knocking came from the door to Xiaoqian's room. Xiaoqian, who was cultivating cross-legged, opened his eyes and sent out his spiritual sense. It was Yu Bingyun. Xiaoqian opened the door with a wave of his hand and said indifferently, I thought you had forgotten about the heavenly origin pill. It looks like you still remember. Yu Bingyun walked over and asked softly, how is it? Did you succeed? Whoosh! An exquisite jade bottle flew towards Yu Bingyun. Yu Bingyun's slender, snow-white hands gracefully caught the jade bottle. Yu Bingyun opened the jade bottle and gently sniffed it. Her usually calm face could not help revealing a trace of joy. She closed the bottle cap and said, many thanks, Xiaoqin. This time, I owe you a huge favor. There's no need to be so polite. It's not difficult for me to refine this heavenly origin pill. After all, you've prepared 100 sets of materials. No matter what, you'll succeed at least one set. Xiaoqin appeared rather calm at Yu Bingyun's excitement. He would not be able to gain too much advantage from this woman. If he could draw a line between them, it would be best to do so. Yu Bingyun put away the jade bottle and did not dwell on this topic. She glanced at Xiaoqin and asked, I wonder, why did young Master Xiao appear in the Black Sea? Do you have a plan? Naturally, Xiaoqin would not tell her his plan. He smiled and said, "My appearance in the Black Sea is easy to explain. What about you? As the Lunar Palace's holy daughter, why did you come out alone? Are you not afraid of an accident?" Yu Bingyun smiled and said, "As the Lunar Palace's holy daughter, barring any accidents, I will be the next Lunar Palace master." Naturally, the person in charge of the Lunar Palace cannot be a flower vase in a greenhouse. The Black Sea is the best cultivation ground for the blue-robed emperor. It is not strange for me to be here. Xiaoqin kept feeling that the other party definitely had a purpose for appearing in the Black Sea. Since Yu Bingyun was not willing to say, naturally, he would not keep asking. The two chatted casually for a while. Then, Yu Bingyun stood up and took her leave. Before she left, she suddenly turned her head back and said, "You had best not leave Blackwater City before the 15th of next month. Otherwise, you might miss out on something that you will regret for life." Before the 15th, Xiaoqin thought of the invitation in his hand. His heart skipped a beat, and he quickly chased after Yu Bingyun. "Are you talking about the Jadeite Mountain Manners ceremony?" This time, it was Yu Bingyun's turn to find it strange. "How did you know about this?" "Right now, not many people know about this." Xiaoqin took out his invitation. Yu Bingyun received it and took a look. Then, she smiled and said, "You are really confident. The manor lord of this Jadeite Mountain Manor even prepared an invitation. Do you really think that you will succeed? Are you not afraid of making a fool of yourself? What exactly is it? Can't you tell me a little in advance?" Yu Bingyun shook her head and said, "I really can't tell you this. Otherwise, if something unexpected happens, it will not be good for either of us. You just have to remember not to leave Blackwater City before the 15th of next month. If you are lucky enough, your chances of advancing to Martial Emperor in 5 years will be much higher." When Xiaoqin heard this, he suddenly felt the invitation in his hand become exceptionally heavy. The mysterious Yu Bingyun had piqued Xiaoqian's curiosity to the extreme. However, the other party was not willing to reveal anything. He. It is not late anymore. You should stop cultivating and have a good sleep. Have a good dream. Yu Bingyun smiled sweetly. Unconsciously, she revealed a perfect air that could topple all living things, one that could topple cities. Xiaoqin was not in the mood to appreciate it. He smiled bitterly and said, "Do you think that I can sleep peacefully with my current curiosity?" Yu Bingyun bit her lip and pondered. After hesitating for a while, she looked at Xiaoqin and said, "Very well. I can only tell you that the Jadeite Mountain Manners ceremony this time has something to do with a divine weapon. Furthermore, this divine weapon has a strong connection to the heart of an emperor." After sending off Yu Bingyun with his eyes, Xiaoqin still could not figure out the connection. He knew too little. "Ao Jiao, what do you think it is?" "If I guessed right, the ceremony should be for the Jadeite Mountain Manor to have a divine weapon enter the divine weapon ranking, becoming one of the 10 strongest divine weapons in the world. There have been many such ceremonies in history." Xiaoqin suddenly understood. Aside from this, there was indeed no other ceremony that could be connected to a divine weapon. Divine weapons could rival emperor-grade secret treasures. There were many of them, but only 10 of them could enter the divine weapon ranking, known as transcendent divine weapons. Transcendent divine weapons could intimidate sovereign martial emperors, comparable to primordial emperor-grade secret treasures. As far as Xiaoqin knew, the saber sovereign Wu Xiaotian and the sword sovereign Lu Xiaoyun dared to fight with primes because they had the coiling monarch time saber and the scarlet firmament void sword. This showed how strong the transcendent divine weapons on the divine weapon ranking were. After figuring this out, the other clues immediately made sense. The merchant group that Xiaoqin saw when he entered the Black Sea should be carrying the supplementary divine materials for breaking into a transcendent divine weapon. Xiaoqin also understood why Yu Bingyun appeared. As far as he knew, the startling Phoenix Zither, a transcendent divine weapon ranked 10th on the divine weapon ranking, was in the hands of the Lunar Palace. If another divine weapon succeeded in breaking into a transcendent divine weapon, the heavenly Phoenix Zither, ranked 10th, would definitely fall. The reason was none other than the fact that only 10 divine weapons were allowed on the divine weapon ranking. As long as a new divine weapon made it into the divine weapon ranking, the one ranked last would definitely fall, becoming an ordinary divine weapon. Yu Bingyun's purpose in coming here was to stop the Jadeite Mountain Manor's Manor Lord from breaking into a transcendent divine weapon, preventing the startling Phoenix Zither from falling off the divine weapon ranking. When Xiaochen thought about it carefully, the Lunar Palace probably sent people to look for the pirates that came to rob the merchant ship. With this connection made sense, all the clues connected in Xiaochen's mind. He now understood the entire sequence of events. All that was left was the connection between the divine weapon and the heart of an emperor. This was simple. He just needed to find out the origins of the divine weapon that the Jadeite Mountain Manor possessed. Ao Jiao, thank you, Xiaochen said with a smile, revealing joy on his face. Ao Jiao, who was in the immortal spirit ring, smiled faintly and said, "You cannot see clearly because you are closely involved. Given your intelligence, if you were a bystander, you would definitely be able to see more clearly than me." Bang! Just at this moment, just as Xiaochen was about to answer, the door to the room suddenly shattered. A strong, knife-like wind blew in. Chapter 1144. Many of the decorations in the room were shredded to pieces. Clanging sounds rang out incessantly. The originally quiet room suddenly turned into a mess. Xia Luo stood outside the door with a furious expression. He retracted his hand and said coldly, "Brat, I gave you face, but you do not want it. Why did Yu Bingyun come to your room? Tell me everything in detail." A murderous intent flashed in Xiaochen's heart. He suppressed the rage in his heart and stood up. Then, he asked indifferently, "Is there a need to tell you?" "Ha! Good. Very good." Xia Luo's killing qi surged all over his body. He smiled coldly as he stared at Xiaochen. The ignorant are truly ignorant. Originally, I was planning to let you live and deal with you when we reach Blackwater City. It looks like there is no need to do so now. Die! Xia Luo roared ferociously, and a fierce electric fire burned on his body. A berserk electric light surged out of his body. In that instant, the electric light blasted the entire inn apart. The warriors staying in the inn were like frightened birds and beasts. They all rushed out, not daring to stay in the same place for a moment. They were afraid that they would get involved in the battle between the experts. Amid the electric light, Xia Luo was like a thunder god. His aura was unparalleled. When he punched, thousands of electric bolts burning with flames appeared. When Xia Luo punched at Xiaochen, his rage soared. He used his full power in this punch, not holding anything back at all. Berserk thunder rumbled, not stopping for even a moment. Xia Luo's punch displayed a strong and horrifying explosive force. It was clear that he wanted to kill Xiaochen with one punch. That's right. The accumulations of the legendary Thunder Fire Sovereign's bloodline cannot be underestimated. Even though it had declined significantly, Xia Luo's strength was still remarkable and qualified to be arrogant. Of course, Xia Luo was only slightly knowledgeable. In Xiaochen's eyes, this was far from sufficient. Xiaochen, who was seated, suddenly stood up. His heavenly seal moved with a thought. 10,000 strands of law energy drove the surging power of the world with a thought. The rock hates the sky for being too low when it spreads its wings. When Xiaochen punched as well, a huge kunpeng that covered half the sky soared up behind him. The shattered and immediately turned into powder and vanished. Whoosh! 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 Xiaochen did not move at all. However, when he moved at full power, his aura instantly suppressed Xia Luo. Without giving Xia Luo any time to be shocked, the instant the two fists collided, Xia Luo vomited blood and flew back. Yu Bingyun hovered high in the sky. A consummation Emperor Wu with a horrifying cultivation stood behind her. "Is that your friend?" the old man asked Yu Bingyun as he pointed to Xia Luo. Yu Bingyun shook her head. "Naturally not. That's good. This person's character is extremely terrible. His reputation in the Black Sea is not very good either. The old man nodded. Then, he pointed to Xiao Chen and asked, "How is that person related to young miss?" "He was the one who killed the leader of our first batch of people, the Blood Wolf pirate group." Yu Bingyun sighed softly. After asking about the details, she understood. She said, "He is my friend. This should just be a misunderstanding. He does not have any connection to the Jadeite Mountain Manor." "Is the plan ready?" "It is ready." The old man whispered, "I can guarantee that the Jadeite Mountain Manor will lose more than they gain on the 15th of next month." As the two spoke, the battle below slowly came to an end. After Xiao Chen sent Xia Luo flying with a punch, he fell into a rhythm of getting beaten up. Many of the cultivators staying in the town recognized Xia Luo. When they saw him getting beaten up so miserably, their faces filled with surprise. "Who is this white-clad youth? How come he dares to beat up the Xia clan's people? He is really strong." Among the younger generation of Blackwater City, this Xia Luo is considered quite a character. Unexpectedly, he got beaten up so miserably at his own home. Xia Luo, who had been beaten up to the point of losing his temper, howled in agony. He no longer had any of his earlier tyranny. He glared hatefully at Xiao Chen before rushing back to Blackwater City. Xiao Chen stood upright with his hands behind his back. He did not give chase, letting Xia Luo flee in a sorry state. This is going to be somewhat problematic. The Xia clan is very powerful in Blackwater City. "You were too rash," Yu Bingyun said slowly as she landed. Xiao Chen did not care. He said, "There are more than 100 million people in the city, comparable to a large nation. No matter how powerful the Xia clan is, they will not find me that easily. There will be a blue-robed emperor-level auction in Blackwater City soon. Are you interested in going?" Clearly, Yu Bingyun did not care about Xia Luo's matter. She mentioned something else and extended an invitation to Xiao Chen. "Sure." Right now, Xiao Chen had more than 100 million black astral coins. He felt some anticipation for this blue-robed emperor-level auction. Perhaps he might be able to find some equipment that he wanted. When the sky brightened, Xiao Chen and Yu Bingyun arrived before Blackwater City at the same time. The black city walls were like a dragon forged of steel, coiled on the ground. There was no sunlight shining on the dark space. However, there was a restrained glow that flickered on the city walls, looking extremely mysterious. This ring of city walls probably had other mysteries, containing many divine materials. Even if a martial emperor attacked, he might not be able to destroy the city in an instant. As Yu Bingyun looked at the city walls, she also felt moved. She said, "The rank of this city is not low. It can be considered a rank 8 city. It can block an ordinary emperor Wu." "Cities are divided into ranks?" Xiao Chen asked out of curiosity. Yu Bingyun smiled gently and said, "That is natural. There are numbers from 1 to 9. The higher the rank, the better. After rank 9 is the strongest holy city." Xiao Chen entered deep thought. Then, he thought about the newly built Heaven Dragon City. Based on what Mo Chen said, it was not weaker than Bright Moon City. So he asked, "What rank is Bright Moon City?" Pride flashed on Yu Bingyun's face. She said, "Of course, Bright Moon City is a holy city that surpasses rank 9. Furthermore, it has been passed down for tens of thousands of years. After accumulating continuously, it is worthy of the title of Immortal Holy City. It is one of the strongest holy cities in the entire oceanic world." In that case, it looked like the rank of Heaven Dragon City was not bad either. It could be considered a holy city as well. However, it was still a distance away from the Immortal Holy City. In the future, Xiao Chen would see if he could think of other ways to catch up to the accumulations of these Immortal Holy Cities. Speaking of which, how many Immortal Holy Cities are there in the oceanic world that are worthy of the title of the strongest holy city? After paying the entrance tax, the two entered the city and started chatting. Yu Bingyun knew a lot about such information. She immediately answered, 7. There is an immortal holy city in each vast sea region. In the heavenly starry ocean is Bright Moon City. In the Penglai Sea is Penglai City. In the Black Sea is the Core Sea Domain, the Dark Sea's Dark City. This was the first time Xiao Chen heard about this, so he felt somewhat curious. He continued asking, what about the other four? Could it be that aside from these 3 sea domains, there are other sea domains? There definitely are. However, it is useless to tell you now. The oceanic world is practically endless. Even the overlord Neptune does not dare to say that it understands every sea domain. As the two chatted, they entered an inn. After ordering some food and eating, they headed for the rooms that they had reserved for each other. Xiao Chen stopped the manservant who came to collect the clothes and gave him 100 black astral coins. He wanted the manservant to figure out the details of the Jadeite Mountain Manor's divine weapon within 4 hours. This was all public information. The Jadeite Mountain Manor was very famous in Blackwater City. As long as the locals spent some time, they would be able to obtain it easily. When the manservant saw the 100 black astral coins, he felt that it was no different from taking it for free. He quickly agreed with a wide smile on his face. Sitting cross-legged on his thighs, Xiao Chen continued to temper himself, merging the 5 different attributes into his saber soul. At the same time, in a courtyard belonging to the Xia clan in Blackwater City, Xia Luo spoke to an old man with a sullen expression. This old man was called Wang Zhen. 3 years ago, he successfully broke through to great perfection blue-robed emperor, becoming a consummation blue-robed emperor who formed a soul for his heavenly seal. From then on, Wang Zhen became the person in charge of the Xia clan in Blackwater City, managing all the Xia clan's factions in Blackwater City. All Wang Zhen needed to do was accumulate enough and clear the great tribulation of wind and fire. Then, he could make his breakthrough to Emperor Wu. However, if he failed the great tribulation of wind and fire, he would most likely die. Even if he accumulated enough, he might not have the courage or confidence to undergo the great tribulation of wind and fire. How bold! How dare he bully our Xia clan so openly? Second young master, don't worry. Leave this matter to this old man. As long as I find this person, I will cripple him on the spot. A murderous intent flashed in Wang Zhen's eyes. With his consummation blue-robed emperor cultivation, killing a great perfection blue-robed emperor would be a piece of cake. After Xiao Chen merged his soul into the heavenly seal, not only would he be able to drive the power of the world much purer than the great perfection blue-robed emperor, but he would also be able to do it more easily. This was a qualitative difference from the great perfection blue-robed emperor. The most important thing was that after Xiao Chen merged his soul into the heavenly seal had already become the vague form of the heart of an emperor. At this moment, unless a cultivator's head was chopped off or their heart was shattered, it would be very difficult for them to deal any fatal damage to the consummation blue-robed emperor. Now, the blue-robed emperor's sage body strengthened once more, becoming infinitely close to the golden emperor body. Xia Luo's expression turned sinister as he said sullenly, there is no rush for now. 3 days from now, Blackwater City will hold a blue-robed emperor-level auction. At that time, I will be able to obtain a few treasures, and my strength will improve by leaps and bounds. Wang Zhen was very meticulous and immediately understood Xia Luo's meaning. The second young master wanted to personally defeat that white-clad man to wash away his shame. No problem. I will listen to second young master. Back at the inn, Xiao Chen exited his cultivation state. Of the 5 high-grade attributes, Xiao Chen could already perfectly merge death and massacre into his saber soul. Now, he could form 100% compatible saber soul and a death saber soul. Their might was not much weaker than the lightning saber soul. If Xiao Chen could cultivate these 2 states into wills, they would be no weaker than the lightning saber soul. At that time, his combat prowess would not be much weaker than a consummation blue-robed emperor's. Dong! 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 There was knocking on the door, and a manservant popped his head out with a smile. Then, he handed a complete set of information to Xiao Chen. The manservant's efficiency was faster than he expected. Shao Chen rewarded him with some black astral coins before sending the manservant away. Shao Chen wanted to see what kind of divine weapon this jadeite mountain manor had. As Shao Chen looked carefully and flipped through the information page by page, the expression on Shao Chen's face turned increasingly grave. He could not suppress the excitement on his face. Chapter 1145. The Jadeite Mountain Manor's divine weapon was called the Heavenly Cloud Jadeite Sword. It was left behind by the Jadeite sovereign, who no longer managed the Jadeite Mountain Manor. The Heavenly Cloud Jadeite Sword was not forged by the Jadeite sovereign. Its original name was not that either. Instead, it was called the Heavenly Blood Sword. This was the sword of another legendary martial emperor of the Black Sea, the Blood Sword Sovereign. The glory that the Blood Sword Sovereign once created was even more dazzling than that of Xia Luo's ancestor, the Thunderfire Sovereign. Aside from the Blood Sword Sovereign's human bloodline, he also had the bloodline of the Deep Abyss demonic world's blood race, a mixed blood of humans and demons. However, the Blood Sword Sovereign's history was too ancient. Before the Black Sea continent shattered, he had already died. The legends he left behind only existed in ancient books. There was only one story that spread far and wide, the Blood Sword Sovereign forming the heart of an emperor before advancing to martial emperor. He became the first person to do so, shaking the entire Kunlun realm. In the history of the martial epoch, no one had formed a complete heart of an emperor before advancing to martial emperor. The heavenly seal infused into the soul was only the vague form of the heart of an emperor, far from the true heart of an emperor. Only those who cleared the great tribulation of wind and fire, reforged their golden body, and successfully pushed open the emperor's door could possess the heart of an emperor. However, this Blood Sword Sovereign broke this rule, becoming the only person in history to possess the heart of an emperor before advancing to martial emperor. Shao Chen's hand nearly trembled as he held the information. If he could grasp this secret technique and condense the heart of an emperor, he would be able to resolve the problem of infusing the soul into the heavenly seal. The problem of infusing the soul into the heavenly seal would naturally be solved when he reached Great Perfection Blue-Robed Emperor and Consummation Blue-Robed Emperor. The principle was very simple. When one merged the soul into the heavenly seal, it only formed the vague form of the heart of an emperor. If one condensed the complete heart of an emperor in advance, why would one care about a vague form? This was the opportunity that Yu Bingyun mentioned. After putting down the information, Shao Chen calmed down. If this secret technique was so easy to find, there would have been a second person who condensed the heart of an emperor in advance after tens of thousands of years. Could the crux of the secret technique for condensing the heart of an emperor be related to the Jadeite Mountain Manor's Heavenly Cloud Jadeite Sword? With limited information, this was all that Shao Chen could think of. The secret technique to condense the heart of an emperor in advance was definitely related to the Heavenly Cloud Jadeite Sword. However, what kind of connection did it have with the Heavenly Cloud Jadeite Sword becoming a transcendent divine weapon? As for Yu Bingyun's position in this matter, no one knew. Putting down the documents, Shao Chen rubbed his head. There was no point in thinking too much. He just had to wait for the 15th of the next month. At that time, all the answers would be revealed. For now, he would concentrate on his cultivation. 3 days later, he would go to the Blue-Robed Emperor level auction house to take a look and see if he could gain anything. Otherwise, he would have nowhere to spend his hundreds of millions of black astral coins. That would be rather depressing. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Yu Bingyun knocked on the door punctually, inviting Shao Chen to come with her. As the name suggested, only the Blue-Robed Emperor was allowed to participate in the Blue-Robed Emperor level auction. Such an auction could not be held in an ordinary city. There was no other reason other than the fact that they could not gather many Blue-Robed Emperors. With only 4 or 5 people, there was no competition at all. How could they possibly open an auction? However, such an auction could definitely be held in Blackwater City. Furthermore, the scene would be extremely lively. The Black Sea was the best experiential training ground for the Blue-Robed Emperor. Its reputation was not undeserved. There were many Blue-Robed Emperor experts in Blackwater City. While one could not see them just by looking up, with a few more steps, one would definitely run into one or two blue-robed emperors. The auction house was known as the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion. The major faction behind it was the Heavenly Cauldron Gate, which was no weaker than a Holy Land. There were also several sovereign martial emperors, all of whom had connections to the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion. The Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion, which had a frighteningly strong backer, had already organized the blue-robed emperor-level auction for several hundred years. No one had ever dared to cause trouble. Slowly, this blue-robed emperor-level auction became a major event in Blackwater City. It attracted nearly 80% of the blue-robed emperors in the entire Blackwater Sea. There were even blue-robed emperors in the neighboring Black Wind Sea and Black Fire Sea, who came because of its fame, hoping to find a treasure. When Xiao Qian and Yu Bingyun rushed to the street where the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion was located, they discovered that many cultivators had already gathered in front of the pavilion. There were also several people in the nearby inns and pavilions. They held wine cups as if they were watching the excitement. Occasionally, they would whisper to each other or exclaim in surprise. "What is going on?" Xiao Qian asked out of curiosity. This was Yu Bingyun's first time here as well, so she was not clear on what was going on. She only understood after asking a passerby. It turned out that the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's blue-robed emperor-level auction tickets were not bought with black astral coins. Instead, cultivators had to prove their strength. The stronger one was, the better the ticket they could obtain. Those with average strength could only obtain ordinary tickets and sit in the hall, unable to enjoy a private room. This was rather interesting. In the other auctions, which one did not treat the blue-robed emperor as an honored guest? Here, one had to rely on one's strength to obtain a ticket. If one was not strong enough, one could only obtain the most ordinary ticket. Under the gaze of so many eyes, it was embarrassing enough to only get a ticket to the main hall. "Let's go over and take a look." The two exuded the aura of the blue-robed emperor as they parted the crowd and headed in. When they arrived, they finally saw what was going on. There was 100-meter-tall stone stele at the foot of the thousands of steps paved with metal. This was the testing stele for the blue-robed emperor's strength. Rows of gems were embedded in the stele at regular intervals. There were a total of 7 rows, and each row had 10 gems. Not far away, there was an exquisite and profound metal dummy connected to the stele through a formation. Occasionally, the blue-robed emperor would step forward and strike the metal dummy. Then, the gems embedded in the stele would glow continuously. When the two stepped forward, a small perfection blue-robed emperor happened to be there. He mustered his strength and drove the power of the world with all his might. Then, he punched the metal dummy. Bang! There was a deafening sound. A strong wind blew, and the clouds churned. The aura and pressure looked very strong. The 10 white gems in the first row on the testing stele all lit up in an instant. The entire stele glowed with a bright white light. After lighting up the 10 gems in the first row, one would obtain the right to enter the auction. However, whether one could obtain the honored guest status and enjoy a private room would depend on the results. The speed at which the 10 blue gems in the second row lit up was clearly much slower. By the time the 300th row of green gems lit up, the speed at which they lit up became even slower. The cultivator standing in front of the metal dummy had a nervous and expectant expression. However, of the 10 gems in the third row, only 5 lit up in the end. The third row is not fully lit up. Sorry, we can only give you the most ordinary tickets. The person in charge of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion, who was standing at the side, took out a ticket and handed it to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man received the ticket with a depressed expression. "I am already a peak small perfection blue-robed emperor, yet I cannot even obtain the honored guest status. What's wrong? You are not convinced?" The person in charge of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion said expressionlessly. "I was just saying, the middle-aged man said with an embarrassed smile. After he spoke, he headed straight for the stairs and entered the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion. How could he not be convinced? This was not a place for a blue-robed emperor to behave atrociously. Even if it were a minor heavenly emperor Wu, he would have to think twice before coming. After that, Xiaochen looked at a few more people and understood the trick. One had to light up at least 3 rows before they could obtain an honored guest ticket. After that, for every row lit up, they could obtain a private room on a higher level, enjoying better service and benefits. Bang! There was another loud sound, and the stone steel started to change colors rapidly. White, blue, green, red, it only stopped after changing 6 colors. The power of one punch lit up 6 rows of gems. This immediately caused an uproar, attracting the attention of several people. It is another consummation blue-robed emperor character. This is Jin Liangqi. 10 years ago, he was a consummation blue-robed emperor expert. However, he has not shown himself in the past few years. Apparently, he is preparing to undergo his great tribulation of wind and fire. Ha! He probably does not have the guts to undergo his great tribulation of wind and fire. Otherwise, he would not have shown himself. Before the envious gazes of the crowd, Jin Liangqi's slightly gloomy face did not change at all. He received the ticket for the honored guest room on the 6th floor and walked over expressionlessly. Xiaochen thought to himself, it turns out that one needs the strength of a consummation blue-robed emperor to light up the gems on the 6th row. After observing for a long time, Xiaochen discovered that this testing stone steel was extremely accurate in measuring one's strength. All this while, Xiaochen did not have a clear idea of the level of his strength. The testing stone steel before him was a good opportunity to see the strongest strength that he could burst out with and how big the gap was between it and those consummation blue-robed emperor existences. Just as Xiaochen was about to step forward and make a move, a familiar figure walked over. It was the legendary Thunder Fire Sovereign's descendant, Xia Luo. Accompanying Xia Luo was an old man with an extremely strong aura. This was a consummation blue-robed emperor expert. However, when Xiaochen observed this old man, he found that this old man's aura was weaker than Jin Liangqi's. The difference was obvious. Indeed, as Xia Luo expected, when Jin Liangqi punched the metal puppet, the light changed. Only 3 purple gems on the 6th row lit up. Compared to the 9 purple gems on the 6th row that Jin Liangqi lit up, this was far from enough. After successfully obtaining a VIP room on the 6th floor, Xia Luo followed behind the old man with a cocky expression. There were many hidden talents in Blackwater City. The blue-robed emperor level auction had drawn out all these consummation blue-robed emperors, opening one's horizons. Xiaochen walked out of the crowd in anticipation, preparing to test which row of gems he could light up. Whoosh! Just as Xiaochen was about to reach the metal puppet, someone with a strong aura flew over in the air, not even bothering to look at Xiaochen. This person continued diving down, kicking up a strong wind that was as sharp as a saber. He said coldly, "Scram to the side. Let this young master test first." The strong wind was like a saber, and the aura was like a mountain. This figure arrived with a surging aura. His fearless sharpness forced back the surrounding cultivators watching the excitement. Xiaochen frowned. Without much time to think, he turned around and sent a palm strike. The other party was too fast. If Xiaochen hesitated for even a moment, he would get injured. Chapter 1146. There was no such thing as reason in the Black Sea. The weak would never gain sympathy. Bang! The newcomer was somewhat surprised. Under the pressure of his strong aura, the other party, a newly advanced great perfection blue-robed emperor, did not choose to retreat. The newcomer's lips curled up in a cruel smile as he said coldly, "You are like a mantis trying to stop a chariot." Scram! The newcomer also sent out a palm strike. Flames soared and formed many flaming mountains behind him. A total of 18 flaming mountains appeared in an instant. The blazing air burned everyone's skin, forcing the cultivators watching to move back another kilometer. A few cultivators with low cultivations even had their eyebrows and hair set ablaze. This showed how horrifying the might of this palm strike was. How startling would the power of 18 flaming mountains be when they erupted together? When the cultivators saw this newcomer's appearance clearly, they all exclaimed. Clearly, they recognized this person and were extremely surprised at his appearance. On the other hand, Xiao Chen's palm strike looked ordinary, without any wind or waves, without any shocking mysterious phenomenon. Upon seeing this scene, several cultivators shook their heads. This white-clad youth was probably going to suffer. Only Yu Bingyun knew that Xiao Chen had not used his full power yet. If he really did, his aura would suppress the newcomer in an instant. Boom! The moment the two palms collided, an earth-shattering sound rang out, and the surrounding void distorted. The 18 flaming mountains erupted at the same time, rumbling endlessly. Overwhelming heat waves spread out in all directions. The flames twisted into all sorts of shapes in the twisted space, preventing the cultivators in the surroundings from seeing the situation clearly. However, it did not matter to them whether they could see or not. Not many people believed that this white-clad youth could block under such circumstances. With such a horrifying palm strike, even if he did not die, he would be severely injured. This was the consequence of blind arrogance. Sometimes, one had to acknowledge one's grandson. Youths should not be too sharp. After suffering some grievances, they would not be able to suppress their temper. The scene before them was the best example. Buzz! 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 Suddenly, the crisp hum of a saber rang out in the space distorted by the flames. It was like a string of pleasant zither music resounding in the surroundings. The torrential heatwave was slowly swept clean by this zither-like saber hum. The distorted space regained its tranquility and the flames disappeared, allowing everyone to see the situation on the other side clearly. When the two palms clashed, they were actually evenly matched. Xiao Chen, who did not use any martial techniques, did not take even half a step back from the force of his opponent's palm strike. The two of them still maintained the posture of their palms colliding. Under the powerful pressure, Xiao Chen's body remained as straight as a mountain. His white robe was untainted by a speck of dust. His hair danced in the wind like the strings of a zither, playing a murderous intent. Everyone was shocked. No one spoke, they were all dumbfounded. Even the person in charge of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion could not help but be moved. It was not because of the incredible combat prowess that Xiao Chen displayed. Instead, it was because such a martial technique was unheard of and unseen before. Unexpectedly, a person turned his clothes, his hair, every part of himself into a saber. Where did this white-robed person come from? He is the descendant of the Black Sea's great bandit Jiang Heng. Unexpectedly, he could not knock him back with one palm strike. Furthermore, I have never seen anyone use this martial technique before. How did he do it? There are sabers everywhere. This is simply miraculous. I have never heard of it before. Since ancient times, no one has ever done it like this. This is a completely different situation. It is truly miraculous. There are thousands of saber daos, but I have never seen such a saber dao before. Strange voices rang out. Everyone found this incredible, subverting the logic they knew. Yu Bingyun did not dare to be surprised. However, when she heard the youth's identity, she looked over in surprise. This arrogant youth was actually Jiang Feng, the descendant of Jiang Heng, one of the 13 great bandits of the Black Sea. Jiang Heng ranked third among the 13 great bandits, an extremely strong sovereign martial emperor. He was known as the Flame Sovereign. He moved unhindered throughout the Black Sea's 5 great seas, a major character without a doubt. His strength was overwhelming and unfathomable. Shock flashed on Jiang Feng's face. He had not expected to run into such a ruthless character in this Blackwater city. Even in Dark City, where outstanding talents abounded, there would not be more than 10 people who dared to receive the blue-robed Emperor's flame palm without using a martial technique. Unexpectedly, such a person appeared in Blackwater City. Furthermore, this was a young outstanding talent about the same age as Jiang Feng. You are somewhat capable. However, this is all you are capable of. Before me, it is not enough. Back off. Jiang Feng shouted ferociously, and a ring of black flames soared up from his body. His aura soared infinitely. The power of the world in the surroundings surged and turned into an endless torrent of fiery energy. Like waves, it flowed along Jiang Feng's palm and surged towards Xiaochen. Several of the people across Xiaochen could feel the waves of fiery energy, each stronger than the one before. As the heatwave assaulted them, they had no choice but to retreat. Xiaochen did not move, letting the heatwave assault him as it pleased. He did not show any intention of retreating. In Xiaochen's sea of consciousness, his saber soul and will of thunder merged. With a thought, they immediately erupted. Purple lightning leaped out of Xiaochen's body. Every bolt of lightning contained an incredibly sharp saber intent. The lightning and saber intent merged perfectly. The other party's waves of fiery energy, each stronger than the one before, continued to erupt endlessly. Xiaochen only used his lightning saber soul and his flawless saber Dao to block the other party's surging waves of fiery energy. Xiaochen had yet to use several of his trump cards. Time slowly passed. Everyone discovered that something was wrong with the atmosphere. It was just a simple exchange of palm strikes, but the two actually fought to such an extent. The Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's manager frowned slightly. If this continued, both sides would end up with severe injuries. That would be extremely disadvantageous to the auction. At the same time, a soft voice rang out in the manager's ears. That was the person behind the scenes of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion, wanting him to make a move and end this fight. Without hesitation, this person threw a palm strike. The palm wind split into two and charged at Xiaochen and Jiang Feng. Given the blue-robed emperor's cultivation at consummation, the two fighting would have to retreat even if they did not want to. Jiang Feng cursed. However, he could not do anything. At this moment, he simply could not afford to split his attention to receive this palm strike. Jiang Feng's figure flashed. When the palm wind arrived, he retreated. He spun a few times in the air before he found his footing. The Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's manager smiled in satisfaction. However, before his smile could fade, he saw that Xiaochen did not retreat at all. Xiaochen suddenly raised his left hand, which had been hanging by his side. Then, a nimble bright moon appeared behind him, burning fiercely like a flame. It depicted lofty sentiments and hot-bloodedness. When Xiaochen sent out this palm strike, it made one's heart surge and blood surge. It was like drinking strong wine, feeling carefree and carefree. Unexpectedly, Xiaochen broke the palm wind that the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's manager sent out with the cultivation of a consummation blue-robed emperor. One had to know that Xiaochen had just finished fighting to the death with Jiang Feng. He did not have any time to turn around or rest. Instead, he raised his hand and broke the manager's attack. Such a scene caused many people to stare blankly. One retreated quickly, and the other did not move even half a step. It was clear who came out on top between Xiaochen and Jiang Feng. The strong wind stopped, and Xiaochen's clothes and hair fell back. The saber hum lingering in the air also stopped. Xiaochen stood upright with his hands behind his back. His delicate face exuded an indescribable pride. You are very lucky. That earlier palm strike was originally meant for you, Xiaochen said coldly to Jiang Feng, who was hovering in the air. Xiaochen said coldly to Jiang Feng, who was hovering in the air. Then, he turned around and ignored him, heading for the metal puppet. Bang! Xiaochen said coldly to the hovering Jiang Feng. Then, he turned around and walked towards the metal statue, ignoring him. The explosion was like thunder roaring, startling the surrounding cultivators back to their senses. They all looked at the stone tablet curiously. They wanted to see what kind of result this mysterious man in white could achieve. They all looked at the stone stele curiously, wanting to see what kind of result this mysterious white-clad person could achieve. The first row lit up in an instant, the second row lit up in a breath's time, and the third row took 3 seconds to light up. The first row lit up instantly. The second row lit up in 1 breath. The third row took 3 seconds to light up the 10 gems. If there were no surprises, Xiaochen should be able to light up the 10 gems in the 5th row. This was the limit of a peak great perfection blue-robed emperor. As for the gems in the sixth row, only a consummation blue-robed emperor, a cultivator who merged his soul with the heavenly seal, could successfully light them up. Without exception, all the cultivators who lit up the gems in the sixth row were consummation blue-robed emperors. The gems in the fifth row lit up slowly, one by one. To everyone's surprise, all 10 gems lit up. Indeed. A newly advanced Great Perfection Blue-Robed Emperor already has the combat prowess of a peak Great Perfection Blue-Robed Emperor. No wonder he can defeat Jiang Feng. This is an expert. I have never heard of him in the Blackwater Sea. I have never heard of him in the nearby Black Wind Sea or the Blackwater Sea. He should be from another sea region. As the crowd discussed in low voices, one of the eye-catching purple gems in the sixth row suddenly lit up silently. The surroundings fell silent. Everyone gaped, somewhat speechless. They could not believe the scene before them. After a while, they confirmed it. Startled cries rang out, and the crowd went into an uproar. A Great Perfection Blue-Robed Emperor actually burst out with a strength that only a consummation Blue-Robed Emperor could achieve. How startling was this? However, Xiao Chen, who stood in front of the metal puppet, frowned slightly, feeling dissatisfied. He had used his full power in that earlier punch. Aside from not using his saber or a secret technique to increase his explosive power, he had not held anything back. Unexpectedly, only one purple gem in the sixth row lit up. The difference in strength between Xiao Chen and the consummation blue-robed emperor was still obvious. Even if Xiao Chen used a secret technique, he would only light up 3 more gems, bringing the total to 4. If Xiao Chen ran into the slightly more powerful consummation blue-robed emperor, his strength would still pale in comparison. Young man, you are pretty strong. Here, these are the tickets to the VIP rooms on the 6th floor. Chapter 1147. The person in charge next to the stone tablet smiled slightly and handed a golden ticket to Xiao Chen. He continued, I have been standing here for a whole day. You are the first young martial artist to light up the 6th row of gems. Moreover, you are only at the level of great accomplishment blue-robed emperor. You have unlimited potential. I'm sure you'll be able to find treasures that interest you in the auction and dig out your potential. Xiao Chen took the gold card and glanced at it. He smiled casually and said, Thank you for your auspicious words, senior. Seeing that Xiao Chen was not arrogant in the slightest, the supervisor nodded inwardly, and his evaluation of Xiao Chen rose by another level. Xiao Chen turned his head and said goodbye to Yu Bingyun. Then, he indicated that he would take his leave first. Yu Bingyun smiled faintly and sent a voice projection to meet up after the auction. Jiang Feng, who was hovering in the air, trembled in anger as he watched Xiao Chen walk towards the doors of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion before the envious gazes of many cultivators. As the descendant of the Black Sea's great bandit Jiang Heng, he spent most of his time in the Black Sea's largest sea region, the Dark Sea. Wherever he went, he would be the center of attention. Aside from a few outstanding young talents who were so strong that Xiao Chen could not do anything about them, no one in the same generation dared to be so arrogant before him. After winning by just half a move, the other party chose to ignore him. Furthermore, it was in a small place like Blackwater City. Cursing angrily, Jiang Heng landed in front of the Iron Man. His whole body was like smoke, rushing up and kicking the Iron Man. Light flickered on the stone steel as the gems lit up continuously. He also lit up the 6th row of purple gems, and 2 of them, one more than Xiao Chen. A look of pride flashed across Jiang Feng's face. Compared to me, you are still a little weaker. I have a secret technique passed down by the Jiang clan. The power he could unleash was already comparable to that of the Great Perfection Blue-Robed Emperor. Don't give me a chance to catch you alone. With a fling of his sleeves, Jiang Feng received the golden ticket and quickly walked over. Incredible. He truly lives up to being a descendant of a sovereign martial emperor. This Jiang Feng's explosive power is really startling. He used a secret technique. The Flame King has a secret technique called the Wolf Smoke Art. Once it's used, the blood vessels in the entire body will boil, and essence energy will spurt out like smoke. It can be seen from 5 kilometers away, and its explosive power is extremely shocking. It's said that when the wolf smoke art is cultivated to the highest level, it can even ignite one's own bloodline. Combined with the Jiang clan's flame cultivation technique, it can increase one's explosive power by several times. Speaking of which, this Jiang Feng has always been in Dark City. Why did he come to our Blackwater City? He's probably just passing by. Hee, but he definitely didn't expect that he would lose to a Blackwater City's advanced blue-robed emperor in front of everyone. When Jiang Feng, who was already walking up the stairs, heard these discussions, the killing intent in his eyes grew even stronger. He clenched his right hand into a fist, and his bones crackled. Hu Qi. As soon as Jiang Feng left, another person came in. He looked to be in his 40s or 50s and had an extraordinary bearing. He was dressed luxuriously and wore a priceless jade ring on his thumb. 10 odd servants followed behind him. They walked over with their heads held high and chests puffed up. Their group was very grand and impressive. When Yu Bingyun saw this person, a strange light immediately flashed in her eyes. This middle-aged man was none other than the current manor lord of the Jadeite Mountain Manor, Fei Lingyi. Fei Lingyi's cultivation was rather horrifying. Even so, when he walked over, he did not release any aura at all. However, he still put a formless pressure on everyone. This made it hard for people to breathe and suppress their hearts, not daring to look him in the eye. The person in charge of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion was clearly familiar with Fei Lingyi. He took the initiative to greet Fei Lingyi and give him a purple gold ticket. That was the most distinguished seat in the auction house. Only after lighting up all 10 purple gems on the 6th row could one qualify to obtain it. Fei Lingyi received the purple gold ticket and smiled. Senior Ma is too polite. However, we still cannot break the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's rules. After saying that, Fei Lingyi shifted his gaze and focused on the metal puppet at the side. A startling aura suddenly erupted from Fei Lingyi's body. The berserk aura knocked some people back in time and knocked them into the air. Bang! The stone steel gave off a bright light, lighting up all 60 gems on the 6th row in one go. The sight of it was very startling. Fei Lingyi withdrew his aura and shook his head. It still won't do. Indeed, only Emperor Wu can light up the golden gems on the 7th row. Even though my strength is already no weaker than that of a small perfection Emperor Wu's, without condensing a heart of an emperor, the difference will forever be a difference. Such an aura was even more ferocious than that of the consummation blue-robed emperors from earlier. The 60 gems lit up at the same time, not pausing at all. Everyone was shocked at how strong Fei Lingyi was. In reality, this Fei Lingyi was indeed far stronger than some of the consummation blue-robed emperors. This was because the other consummation blue-robed emperors had not undergone their great tribulation of wind and fire. However, Fei Lingyi had. Although he failed, he was fortunate enough not to die. After he survived, his strength increased significantly. When one underwent the great tribulation of wind and fire, there was a slim chance of survival. Once one succeeded, one could ascend to emperor and look down on everyone, becoming a true peak character of this world. However, there were also some people who didn't succeed in overcoming their tribulations. However, they were lucky enough to survive, allowing their strength to increase once again. Such people were known as Half-Step Emperor Wu, also known as False Emperor Wu. The power of the world that they could drive was already no weaker than that of a small perfection blue-robed emperor. However, they did not have a heart of an emperor, so they were always half a step short. Furthermore, after undergoing the tribulation once, there would be no second chance. That was to say, while this Fei Lingyi looked strong now, he would never have a chance to take that half-step to Emperor Wu in this lifetime. As Yu Bingyun watched Fei Lingyi enter the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion, a smile slowly appeared on her face. This person finally arrived. If Yu Bingyun had not come, there would have been a 30% chance of him advancing the Heavenly Cloud Jadeite sword to a transcendent divine weapon. However, once he arrived, according to the plan, Fei Lingyi would have no chance at all, destined to fail. The divine weapon, the Heavenly Cloud Jadeite sword, would be reduced to a pile of scrap metal. The Lunar Palace's startling Phoenix Qin would also be able to remain on the divine weapon ranking. Yu Bingyun had successfully completed her mission. Inside the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion was an exquisite and elegant hall. The interior was a ring-shaped building with 7 floors. After Xiao Chen handed over his golden ticket, an attendant led him to a large, luxurious private room on the ring-shaped 6th floor. The private room's setup was very interesting. The Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion had no intention of protecting the privacy of the customers. The windows were open to the air. Not only the owners of the private rooms on the opposite floors but also the customers in the hall could see each other. The hall was already filled with many cultivators. These were all small perfection blue-robed emperors who did not get a private room. There were about 1,000 of them. At first glance, 1,000 small perfection blue-robed emperors seemed like a lot. However, when one thought about it carefully, just the local cultivators in Blackwater City numbered more than 100 million. Furthermore, there were many blue-robed emperors from other sea regions who came for experiential training. It would not be an exaggeration for 1,000 small perfection blue-robed emperors to gather together. If one included those blue-robed emperors who were still adventuring in the various remnants and did not have time to come, there would be even more. This was the first time Xiao Chen saw so many blue-robed emperors gathered together. He could not help but sigh in his heart. Sometimes, only when one's strength reached a certain level could one officially enter a circle of a certain level. If it were in the past, Xiao Chen would not have even heard of an auction of this scale. To him, this was like a legend. Now, Xiao Chen had gone from a minor character when he first entered the Kunlun realm to a VIP private room in a blue-robed emperor-level auction. As he looked down on the group of older generation blue-robed emperors, he enjoyed the glory of being in a superior position. Something that he did not even dare to imagine back then happened to him. However, he felt strangely calm, not feeling too proud or satisfied. I wonder, what kind of scene will a Emperor Wu level auction and gathering be like? Xiao Chen picked up the wine cup on the table and gently swirled it for a while. Then, he drank it in one gulp, feeling boundless anticipation in his heart. The auction would officially start only after sunset. Right now, it was still some time before sunset. Since he had nothing to do, Xiao Chen picked up the auction list on the table and carefully looked through it. It is indeed a blue-robed emperor-level auction. The things being auctioned here are really exciting. To think that there is even a divine weapon. Xiao Chen's gaze moved around the list, searching for his target. Coincidentally, he saw a divine weapon being auctioned. It was a treasure sword with a starting bid of 20 million black astral coins. Aside from a consummation blue-robed emperor, a regular blue-robed emperor would not be able to afford such a price. As a saber user, Xiao Chen naturally did not dare to be interested in this. As he continued to look, a medicinal pill attracted his attention. The source-returning pill could instantly recover one's heavenly laws, which was equivalent to doubling one's law energy. To people like Xiao Chen, who did not have as much law energy as a consummation blue-robed emperor, this medicinal pill held a great attraction. When one ran out of law energy, one could consume an internal source-returning pill and immediately regain combat prowess. In times of danger, one would be able to survive. Xiao Chen had heard of this medicinal pill before. The ingredients were extremely difficult to gather, and the success rate was very low. It was extremely rare among king-grade medicinal pills. There were 5 medicinal pills in this bottle, and the starting bid was 1 million black astral coins. Xiao Chen estimated that, given the value of this medicinal pill, the final bid would be 3 or 4 times higher. After looking through the list, Xiao Chen discovered that many of the auction items did not have a detailed introduction. They did not even have a name. This was probably to maintain a sense of mystery. Only when the auction officially started would there be a grand introduction. Aside from the source-returning pill, which Xiao Chen paid special attention to, there were a few other treasures that he marked as well. As long as the price was not too ridiculous, he would bid for them. Xiao Chen was filled with anticipation for these mysterious auction items, hoping that they would give him a pleasant surprise. Strange, how could there be such a heavenly treasure being auctioned? Just as Xiao Chen was about to put down the list, Ao Jiao suddenly spoke up from the immortal spirit ring. Xiao Chen took a look at the list and felt that he had not missed anything. He did not know which auction item Ao Jiao was referring to. Why didn't I notice that auction item? It is that heptagold origin. Heptagold is a peak divine material in the first place. Heptagold origin is even more pitifully rare. If heptagold origin is added to a divine weapon, the chances of breaking through to a transcendent divine weapon will double. Xiao Chen quickly looked over. After he saw the starting bid, he finally understood why he had not paid attention to it. This heptagold origin actually had a starting bid of only 10,000 black astral coins. Chapter 1148. Why is the reserve price so low? I nearly missed it. It doesn't matter. Even if the reserve price for such a divine item is 0, it will quickly reach 10 million black astral coins. I just find it strange that such an item appeared in the auction house. Why would someone with the ability to obtain such an item auction it? A thought occurred to Xiao Chen. He asked, "Little Ao Jiao, should we bid for this heptagold origin? If I succeed in breaking through to Emperor Wu, the lunar shadow saber will have to advance to a divine weapon." Ao Jiao, who was in the immortal spirit ring, remained silent for a while. Then, she shook her head and said, "There's no need. I know where to find a heptagold origin. When you advance to consummation Emperor Wu, I will bring you there. There is no need to rush the lunar shadow saber. If it does not advance to a divine weapon, then so be it. Once it does, it will definitely make it onto the divine weapon ranking." Xiao Chen rejoiced in his heart. He smiled and said, "There is such a place. Why did you not tell me about it?" Ao Jiao smiled and did not reply. She had to tell Xiao Chen the location of the Thunder King's inheritance. As for the Thunder King's final wish, that would depend on Xiao Chen's own choice. The most important thing now was to help Xiao Chen succeed in breaking through to Emperor Wu. Otherwise, everything would be for naught. The Thunder King probably did not want to see Xiao Chen become a meteor at such a young age, disappearing in a flash. Suddenly, Xiao Chen thought of something. With the heptagold origin here, that Jadeite Mountain Manor's Manor Lord, Fei Lingyi, would definitely come. If Xiao Chen managed to obtain this heptagold origin, there was a 70 to 80% chance that the Heavenly Cloud Jadeite sword would advance to a transcendent divine weapon. Xiao Chen frowned slightly when he felt an extremely strong aura. He looked up and saw a middle-aged man with an imposing appearance and an air of arrogance. He was escorted by a group of servants as he walked in with large strides. There was an uproar in the hall. Many lesser-tier blue-robed emperors stood up and greeted them. When Xiao Chen heard how this middle-aged man addressed him, he put down the list and revealed a faint smile. What a coincidence! I was just thinking about this Fei Lingyi when this fellow appeared. With this person around, Xiao Chen had a premonition that the heptagold origin would definitely be auctioned off for a sky-high price. Fortunately, Ao Jiao knew of a place with a heptagold origin. Otherwise, she would have to spend a lot of black astral coins to compete with this person. As more and more blue-robed emperors entered, the atmosphere in the hall became more and more lively. At the doors, Xiao Chen saw a familiar figure. An attendant led Yu Bingyun to the VIP room on the 5th floor. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. He wondered what kind of expression Yu Bingyun would have when she saw the heptagold origin on the auction list. If Fei Lingyi obtained this item and the Heavenly Cloud Jadeite sword successfully became a transcendent divine weapon, her mission would be considered a complete failure. Wait, why does this feel somewhat strange? If Ao Jiao did not know that there were heptagold origins elsewhere, he would definitely try to obtain this heptagold origin at all costs. That would be equivalent to him helping Yu Bingyun. Furthermore, Yu Bingyun was the one who introduced him to this auction. Could it be a coincidence? That was not right. Yu Bingyun did not know that Xiao Chen obtained the Dragon's Gate treasure trove and did not think that his wealth was stronger than Fei Lingyi's. Given Yu Bingyun's cautious character, she absolutely would not place all her hopes on Xiao Chen. At this moment, in the private room, Yu Bingyun looked at the heptagold origin on the list and revealed a faint smile. No matter how Xiao Chen guessed, he could not guess what Yu Bingyun's plan was. Since she personally made a move, how could she let Fei Lingyi succeed? When the full moon hung high in the sky, the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's blue-robed emperor-level auction started on time. On the auction stage, the person in charge of the auction, who had been standing outside earlier, walked up and performed a cupped fist salute. Then, after some pleasantries, he went straight to the point. This old man is Yang Yunfan. I will not make too many introductions. In the future, if anyone has any treasures to buy or auction, you can come and look for me at any time. Now, the auction will begin. The first treasure is a pair of peak-quality king-grade gloves called the Fleeting Shadow Gloves. Yang Yunfan spoke frankly with assurance, going straight to the point. He did not beat around the bush at all. Then, he continued, friends familiar with Emperor-grade secret treasures should know that even the most ordinary Emperor-grade secret treasure requires the cultivation of a small perfection Emperor Wu in order to bring out its full might. The secret treasure most suitable for the blue-robed Emperor is still a peak king-grade secret treasure, which is also commonly known as peak-quality king-grade secret treasures. Aside from increasing one's attack speed, the Fleeting Shadow Gloves can also disperse a portion of the opponent's attack. The starting bid is 1 million black astral coins. Each bid must be no less than 100,000 black astral coins. After Xiao Chen heard the introduction, his eyes lit up. This pair of gloves was simply tailor-made for him. By increasing his attack speed, Xiao Chen could draw his saber even faster. The ability to disperse attacks could also improve the combat prowess of his fist and palm techniques. There was probably no one else in the auction house like Xiao Chen. Since Xiao Chen was a bladesman, his fist and palm techniques could also surpass the others. 1,500,000. 165,000. 1,700,000. 2 million. There was no need to fear that no one would fight for a good item. The moment this pair of Fleeting Shadow Gloves was put up for auction, it immediately became a hot topic. The price soared to 2 million black astral coins, nearly doubling in an instant. This flabbergasted Xiao Chen. There were really many rich people. In an instant, the price doubled. In reality, Xiao Chen did not know that it was rare for such an auction to happen. Many of the blue-robed emperors had already made preparations to save money before the auction started. Some even borrowed black astral coins from their friends in advance. The reason was none other than the fact that it became increasingly difficult to raise one's cultivation after reaching the blue-robed emperor realm. In a situation where everyone did not improve much, the effects of external items on combat prowess were magnified many times over. If one managed to find a suitable treasure, one could immediately raise one's combat prowess by 10 to 20%, equivalent to decades of bitter cultivation. With such a reason, it would be strange if the competition was not intense. Xiao Chen did not rush to call out a bid. He had participated in many auctions of various sizes before and had already grasped some of the techniques. When one saw something that caught one's eye, there was no need to rush to call out a bid. One had to observe carefully to see who was chasing after it and figure out the other party's psychological price. Of course, this was under the condition that no one was messing around. If someone was purposely messing around, all techniques would be useless. In the end, one would still have to rely on wealth. After observing for a long time, when the price of the Fleeting Shadow Gloves reached 3 million black astral coins, Xiao Chen called out a bid of 4 million black astral coins. Raising the price by 1 million black astral coins in one go immediately broke the psychological barrier of several people chasing after the Fleeting Shadow Gloves. This resulted in a temporary silence. If Xiao Chen's observation was right, the people who were truly chasing after this Fleeting Shadow Gloves would not raise the price any further. He would successfully purchase this pair of gloves at the price of 4 million black astral coins. 5 million black astral coins. Just as everyone was silent, a cold and sinister voice called out a bid. Xiao Chen felt a murderous intent. He looked over and saw Jiang Feng in the private room across from him. Who is so rich? This is not worth it. This pair of gloves is worth at most 3 million black astral coins. It has already tripled. 4 million black astral coins is already a loss. 5 million black astral coins is really too much. It's Jiang Feng. He is competing with that white-robed bladesman. No wonder he lost face to the white-robed bladesman outside and is trying to regain it here. This is not going to be easy. The white-robed bladesman probably will not be able to buy anything good. The Black Sea Great Bandit Jiang Heng is very wealthy. As his grandson, Jiang Feng has at least 20 to 30 million black astral coins. That is comparable to the consummation blue-robed emperor. Noisy discussions resounded. Many gazes looked at Xiao Chen with pity in their eyes. Dang! Jiang Feng placed the wine cup in his hand heavily on the table and wiped the wine off his lips with a handkerchief. Then, he looked provocatively at Xiao Chen and said coldly, "Let's see what you are going to use to compete with me." 10 million black astral coins. Xiao Chen ignored Jiang Feng's gaze and slowly called out a price that no one dared to believe. Pu Ci. Before Jiang Feng could swallow the wine in his mouth, he spat it out. His face was filled with shock and disbelief. The words, 10 million black astral coins, resounded in his ears. Damn! Is he crazy? My God! 10 million black astral coins. What kind of concept is that? Even some ordinary emperor-grade secret treasures are only worth 10 million black astral coins. However, the blue-robed emperor will not be able to bring out their full potential. Speechless. You really cannot compare yourself with others. Does he have that much money? He should. He should be very clear that he will not have a good ending if he dares to raise the price in the Heavenly Cauldron auction. I think Jiang Feng is going to cry. Just now, he wanted to use money to slap Jiang Feng's face. Who knew, he got slapped so hard. This slap is really heavy. Ha! This is interesting. The young outstanding talent of the Black Sea is continuously getting slapped in the face in our Blackwater Sea. He must be feeling very sullen. Bang! Jiang Feng slammed his palm heavily on the solid wood table, shattering it. He gritted his teeth in anger, wanting to call out a bid of 20 million black astral coins on impulse. However, he only had 20 million black astral coins on him. Furthermore, he still needed to use it to purchase a treasure that he had been interested in for a long time. He did not dare to call out such a price. 10 million black astral coins going once. Going twice. Going thrice. Good. No more bids. Sold. Yang Yunfan spoke in a rhythmic manner. Finally, he hammered down the hammer. The first auction was a success. The sky-high opening price was a good start. The smiling Yang Yunfan thought to himself, I have to make friends with that white-clad youth after this is over. His background is definitely not simple. Inside the booth, Xiao Chen slowly put down his wine cup. He continued to ignore Jiang Feng's murderous gaze, not bothering with him. There was no need to say much to such a person. Xiao Chen wanted to talk about the rules with him, but he did not follow them. He insisted on using his influence to force people, telling them to scram before the testing stone steel. Then, he was unreasonable during the auction, wanting to use his wealth to humiliate Xiao Chen. In that case, there was no need for Xiao Chen to care about Batu's face. If you want to fight, then fight. Let's see who will have the last laugh. Xiao Chen has more than 100 million black astral coins on him. Aside from the Jadeite Mountain Manor's Manor Lord and a few other older generation people, there were not many people in the entire auction hall that Xiao Chen feared in terms of wealth. Up in the booth on the 7th floor, Fei Lingyi revealed some doubt on his arrogant face as he watched the commotion below. He waved his hand and instructed, investigate this person's background and see if he will be a threat to my auction of the heptagold origin. After a pause, Fei Lingyi said, let him know in advance. Tell him to be sensible and not act rashly. This heptagold origin is very important. Nothing can go wrong. Two old men in the booth immediately left to carry out the order and disappeared. Chapter 1149. As Fei Lingyi held the list and looked at the heptagold origin, a dazzling light appeared in his eyes. The appearance of this heptagold origin was truly the heavens helping him. It would be hard for the heavenly cloud jadeite sword not to become a transcendent divine weapon. Manor Lord, what if that person does not listen to us? After all, he even dared to slap Jiang Feng's face ruthlessly. A person at the side asked somewhat uncertainly. Fei Lingyi put down the list and rubbed the jadeite ring on his thumb with his right hand. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes as he smiled and said, "That's good. That will save us some money." Inside the private room, Xiaoqin did not know that Fei Lingyi already had his eyes on him. However, even if he knew, he would not care. That golden plume feather in his hand could even force back the greater heavenly Emperor Wu. Why would he fear Fei Lingyi? At this moment, Xiaoqin happily paid the bill and sized up the fleeting shadow gloves in high spirits. After leaving his spiritual mark on them, he immediately put them on. The material of the fleeting shadow gloves was extremely soft. A peak refining grandmaster had used excellent skills to blend many divine materials into a kind of soft metal. The surface of the gloves was smooth like flowing water. When worn, half of the fingers would be exposed, making it even more convenient. There was an imprint on the back of the gloves. Formations for dispersing force were inlaid in them. Xiaoqin tested the gloves in the private room. When he attacked, there was no sound of wind at all, just like the name Fleeting Shadow. It felt like his hands merged with the air without any resistance. Xiaoqian's attack speed increased by 20%. As for the effect of dispersing force, he would have to test it in actual combat. With this pair of gloves, Xiaoqian's combat prowess increased significantly. Now, he could face a consummation blue-robed emperor. As long as Xiaoqin did not face a consummation blue-robed emperor that had been stuck for more than 10 years or a consummation blue-robed emperor that cultivated a profound cultivation technique, Xiaoqin would be able to fight a consummation blue-robed emperor. This gave Xiaoqin even more confidence. Even if he could not obtain victory, he was still confident of not being defeated. No one would believe that a newly ascended blue-robed emperor could fight against a perfected blue-robed emperor. Wang Zhen and Xia Luo, who were also in the private rooms on the 6th floor, also saw the scene of Xiaoqin putting on the flowing shadow glove. The murderous intent in their eyes uncontrollably manifested itself. "Second young master, is it him?" Wang Zhen asked. Xia Luo nodded with a sinister expression. "That's him. To think that he actually has such wealth. This is truly unexpected." Wang Zhen smiled and said, "Second young master, don't worry. After the auction ends, I will find someone to follow him. At that time, not only will I help second young master teach this brat a good lesson, but I'll also help second young master seize that pair of gloves." Xia Luo revealed a smile on his face. "Good. I do not need these gloves. They are just nice for Big Brother to use." Amidst the numerous undercurrents, the auction proceeded like a raging fire. Treasure after treasure was sold at exorbitant prices. Yang Yunfan also started to introduce the source returning pill that caught Xiaoqian's eye. Yang Yunfan took out a bottle of medicinal pills and said, "This is a bottle of source returning pills. I believe everyone knows their effects and how low the success rate is. I will not elaborate. There is a total of 5 medicinal pills. The starting price is 1 million black astral coins. Each increment must be no less than 100,000 black astral coins." As the auction started, the price soared. Such a medicinal pill could be used to save one's life or turn the tables at a crucial moment. It was simply a divine medicine that could instantly recover law energy. It would be hard not to be envious. 4 million black astral coins. 4 million black astral coins. 5 million black astral coins. 6 million black astral coins. Toward the end, every increment was 1 million black astral coins, far surpassing Xiaoqian's expectations. However, with his meticulous mind, Xiaoqin discovered that the ones bidding were all great perfection blue-robed emperors. On the contrary, few consummation blue-robed emperors bid. This source returning pill might not have an instant recovery effect on a consummation blue-robed emperor. 10 million black astral coins. Suddenly, someone called out, raising the bid by 4 million black astral coins in one go. This person's attitude completely suppressed the voices of the other bidders. Although the source returning pill was good, at 10 million black astral coins, the quality-price ratio was not very high. Xiaoqin looked towards the source of the voice. The one who called out the bid was Jiang Feng, the descendant of the Black Sea's great bandit Jiang Heng. Jiang Feng had to obtain this source returning pill no matter what. The moment he called out the bid, he displayed an overbearing aura, extinguishing the hopes of several people. Damn it! It is really unfair to compete with these noble clan scions in terms of wealth. Who asked him to have a good grandfather? In the eyes of a sovereign martial emperor, 10 million black astral coins is nothing. When the group of blue-robed emperors, who were envious of the source returning pill, heard the bid of 10 million black astral coins, they could not help complaining. It was not that they did not have 10 million black astral coins. It was just that they could not accept it. Using 10 million black astral coins to buy 5 source returning pills was not worth it. When Jiang Feng heard the discussions below, he revealed a cocky smile. Earlier, these people had mocked him a lot. A bunch of country bumpkins, scared silly by 10 million black astral coins. Jiang Feng smiled faintly, forgetting that he had been shocked by Xiaoqian's 10 million black astral coins earlier, not daring to make another bid. Inside the private room, Xiaoqian entered deep thought, wondering if he should continue calling out bids. There were not many things that caught Xiaoqian's eye. However, this Jiang Feng had his eye on the 2 things that he liked, causing the price to soar. The other party was probably purposely looking for trouble with the fleeting shadow gloves. As for the source returning pills, he was probably sincere about auctioning them. Is there anyone else who wants to raise the bid for the source returning pill? 10 million black astral coins going once. 10 million black astral coins going twice. Just as Yang Yunfan was about to slam the gavel, Xiaoqin made up his mind. Since he had taken a fancy to it, he would fight for it. No matter how much money he had to buy it. Otherwise, if he regretted it in the future, he might even lose his life. It would be pointless to hold on to a pile of black astral coins. Not wanting to waste time with this Jiang Feng, Xiaoqin directly called out, 20 million black astral coins. The moment the horrifying bid was called out, the entire auction hall fell silent, completely stupefied. Not only were the small perfection blue-robed emperors in the hall stunned, but Jiang Feng was stunned as well. He only had 20 million black astral coins in total. He had never thought of spending it all on this source returning pill. No matter what, he had to keep half of it for himself. Earlier, Jiang Feng had been mocking the others for being a bunch of country bumpkins. Right after he spoke, he was instantly slapped in the face. He really could not accept this. Damn it! If this were Dark City, I would be able to move 50 million black astral coins at any time. There would be no need for me to suffer like this. Jiang Feng was so angry that he nearly exploded. If not for this being the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion, he would have charged over on the spot. Once again, Xiaoqin experienced the feeling of being rich and overbearing. At the price of 20 million black astral coins, he shocked the entire auction hall and successfully obtained this bottle of source returning pill. Just as Xiaoqin received the source returning pill, a voice projection rang out in his ears. I'm the Manor Lord of the Jadeite Mountain Manor. Pass on a message. I hope that when the heptagold origin is auctioned later, you will give me some face and not join in the fun. When Xiaoqin heard this, he felt excited. Fei Lingyi probably would not say the same thing to him alone. It looked like he was determined to obtain this heptagold origin. Xiaoqin had already chosen to give up on the heptagold origin. Whether this person sent a voice projection or not, it would be the same. I am not interested in the heptagold origin. You can rest assured. The person who sent the message returned to the booth with satisfaction. Then, he reported to Fei Lingyi, Manor Lord, I have already spoken to them. The person you specially instructed also indicated that he will not join in the fun. When Fei Lingyi heard this, he smiled faintly and said, I, Fei Lingyi, still have some face in Blackwater City. The Lunar Palace's people will definitely not expect that the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion will auction a heptagold origin. After we obtain the heptagold origin today, get the people at the Mountain Manor to make preparations to break through to a transcendent divine weapon. So fast. Isn't it supposed to be on the 15th of next month? The others in the booth exclaimed in shock. Fei Lingyi said sullenly, since we already have the heptagold origin, there is no need to be so calculative. If we delay, something unexpected might happen. The sooner, the better. When the sky was about to brighten, the climax of the auction finally arrived. The last auction item, the heptagold origin, was taken out. This is the heptagold origin, a divine material among divine materials. The Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion is lucky to be able to obtain such a treasure this time. I believe that any blue-robed emperor would be very familiar with its value. I will not introduce it and start the auction. Everyone, just make your bid. Yang Yunfan appeared very confident in this last auction item. Even if the starting bid was 0, such a treasure would eventually fetch a sky-high price. I bid 20 million black astral coins. I hope that everyone will give me, Fei Lingyi, some face. My Jadeite Mountain Manor's Heavenly Cloud Jadeite sword will be breaking through to a transcendent divine weapon after daybreak. After I obtain the heptagold origin, I will give everyone here an invitation to attend the ceremony together. Fei Lingyi, who had been silent since the start of the auction, immediately stood up and made a bid after Yang Yunfan finished speaking, revealing an explosive piece of news. Immediately, an uproar broke out. Many people were extremely shocked. This news came a little too suddenly. After Fei Lingyi's words rang out, Yang Yunfan's expression turned extremely unsightly. Fei Lingyi's words severely broke the rules of the auction, using his influence to disrupt the auction. Fei Lingyi's bid was not low. Although the heptagold origin was rare, it was only the size of a thumb. 20 million black astral coins was sufficient. However, if the rules were broken, how was the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion going to do business in the future? Yang Yunfan's face sank. He said, Manor Lord, isn't this a little inappropriate? Fei Lingyi stood up and said, sorry, I must obtain this heptagold origin. I can add another 10 million black astral coins. Just as Yang Yunfan was about to say something, a voice projection suddenly entered his ears. The person behind the scenes of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion had sent a message. The seller completely accepted the price of 30 million black astral coins. After hearing that, Yang Yunfan swallowed back what he wanted to say. Then, he organized his words and said, good. This time, I will give the Jadeite sovereign some face. The Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion will not disqualify you from the auction. However, the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion is open for business and welcomes competition. If there are any friends who can bid more than 30 million black astral coins, we guarantee your safety in the auction. No one will threaten you. Chapter 1150. After Fei Lingyi heard that, he revealed a faint smile. He feared that the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion would fall out with him and expel him. In that case, he really had no choice. Others might not know, but he knew that the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion had several Emperor Wu overseeing it. Fortunately, Shaoqin still had a sovereign martial emperor ancestor alive. Otherwise, after saying such words, he would have been chased out immediately. As for the other Emperor Wu present, he believed that with his influence, he would be able to intimidate them. Several of the blue-robed emperors present could take out 30 million black astral coins. However, after thinking about it, they felt that there was no need to compete with Fei Lingyi. Firstly, Shaoqin thought that he might not be able to defeat Fei Lingyi. Instead, he might end up offending a half-step Emperor Wu. Secondly, they did not have an urgent need for the heptagold origin. In order to refine a divine armament into a transcendent divine armament, the heptagold origin was only one of the ingredients. There were many other supplementary materials as well. Since that was the case, he might as well do Shao Chen a favor. As Fei Lingyi expected, no one competed with him. He successfully obtained the heptagold origin for 30 million black astral coins. After putting away the heptagold origin, Fei Lingyi was in a good mood. He performed a cup-fist salute and said with a smile, "Many thanks to everyone. Now that the auction has ended, if everyone is willing to do me the honor, you can come to my Jadeite Mountain Manor and watch the ceremony together. Let's witness the birth of a new transcendent divine weapon, the Heavenly Cloud Jadeite Sword." Amidst loud laughter, Fei Lingyi walked out complacently. The group of blue-robed emperors in the private rooms in the hall quickly rushed out to follow. Such a grand event was rare. Everyone wanted to see for themselves whether Fei Lingyi would succeed or not. Even Jiang Feng and Xia Luo temporarily forgot their hatred for Shao Chen. This sudden matter disrupted their plans. After muttering to himself for a moment, he left the private room and rushed toward the Jadeite Mountain Manor. There were only 10 transcendent divine weapons in the world. Each transcendent divine weapon was extremely mighty, comparable to a primordial emperor treasure. If Shao Chen succeeded in breaking through, it would be a major event that would shock the entire Black Sea, spreading throughout the entire Kunlun realm. It could even change the power structure of the entire Black Sea, triggering a new round of super reshuffling. In the private room, Shao Chen was not in a hurry to leave. He was sorting out his gains from the auction. In this auction, in addition to the flowing shadow gloves and the source returning pill, he had also won 100 high-grade demon fiend stones. Ordinary demon fiend rocks were very effective for tempering saber intent and sword intent. However, tempering the saber's soul required medial grade and superior grade demon fiend rocks. If there was a top-grade demon fiend stone, that would be the best. Unfortunately, a treasure that could even tempt Emperor Wu would not appear in this blue-robed Emperor-level auction. The entire auction cost more than 20 million black astral coins. If not for Jiang Feng's interference, the price would have been halved. This debt, Shao Chen secretly remembered in his heart. If there was a chance in the future, he would definitely get it back with interest. Shao Chen walked out of the auction house unhurriedly. At the entrance, he saw Yu Bingyun, who had been waiting for him for a long time. "Ha! Everyone else is already gone, but you are not anxious at all. Why are you not interested in this ceremony at all?" Yu Bingyun smiled gently. Her otherworldly aura coupled with her smile deterred others from looking at her directly. As Shao Chen looked at Yu Bingyun, he smiled meaningfully. "The one who should be anxious should be you, not me. Once the startling wind zither of the Lunar Palace falls out of the divine weapon ranking, you will not be able to bear the loss. If Yu Bingyun messed up such a mission, her position as the Holy Daughter would definitely be questioned in the Lunar Palace." Shao Chen did not believe that she did not have any competitors in the Lunar Palace and would not feel any pressure. "It looks like you have more or less guessed the ins and outs of the matter." Yu Bingyun walked forward with a calm expression. She said calmly, "However, with the heavenly source pill that you gave me, I will definitely be able to cultivate my longevity art to the 12th layer. The position of the Holy Daughter will not be threatened, so I will not be anxious at all." Yu Bingyun's calm expression prevented Shao Chen from figuring out her true thoughts. The two chatted as they walked. However, their speed was not slow at all. When the first rays of the morning sun shone out, the final traces of darkness before dawn vanished, and the entire sky started to brighten. However, dark clouds covered the Black Sea all year round. There was no way to see the glorious scene of the sun rising. This was very regrettable. The Jadeite Mountain Manor was situated in Blackwater City, between mountains and rivers. The mountains and rivers gave off a feeling that the mountains were not mountains and the water was not water. As one walked along the crisscrossing paths and looked at the mountains, rivers, trees, and clouds flying across the lake, it felt like one was strolling in a painting, an extremely wondrous feeling. According to rumor, the Jadeite sovereign personally laid out the layout of the Jadeite Mountain Manor. There was an exquisite formation hidden in the Jadeite Mountain Manor that merged the surrounding geomancy of the entire mountain manor. If the formation was activated, even a sovereign martial emperor would find it hard to break. The reputation of the Jadeite Mountain Manor was a rather famous place in the entire Blackwater city. There was an endless stream of visitors all year round. As Xiaochen walked around and looked at the mountains and rivers, he felt very moved. He felt that the Jadeite sovereign had put a lot of thought into every part of the layout. He could not casually change or damage them. Otherwise, it would result in a huge change. This Jadeite sovereign was truly incredible. His attainments in geomancy were probably unrivaled in the world. When Xiaochen felt the harmony between the mountain manor and nature, he suddenly understood why this sovereign martial emperor did not care about worldly power. He did not fight for fame and profit to develop the Jadeite Mountain Manor. Instead, he chose to wander around and be a hands-off manager. He did not take special care of his descendants at all. In the Black Sea, where competition was the law of the jungle, such a sovereign martial emperor could be considered a marvel. As the Jadeite Mountain Manor approached, Xiaochen could not help saying, "The Jadeite sovereign is definitely not weak." Given his mental state, it is entirely possible for him to advance to prime. Yu Bingyun looked at the beautiful gates of the mountain manor. There were many people inside. Who knew how many blue-robed emperors worked hard to manage them? After a while, she walked forward and said indifferently, "That is natural." If the Jadeite sovereign did not have any deterrence, even if Fei Lingyi were 10 times more courageous, he would not dare to advance his divine weapon into a transcendent divine weapon. However, in the end, he is just a brute. He does not know what he is doing. If he succeeds, even if the Jadeite sovereign rushes back, he will not be able to save his life. Xiaochen's heart skipped a beat. An ordinary man's wealth was his ruin. Even if the Lunar Palace did not seek trouble for Xiaochen, the other factions of the Black Sea would make a move immediately to snatch this transcendent divine weapon. At that time, there would be a storm of blood. As a half-step Emperor Wu, he would not be able to handle the situation. "Are the two of you entering the manor to participate in the ceremony?" When the mountain manor's guard in jade-green robes saw Xiaochen and Yu Bingyun, he walked over politely and performed a cupped fist salute. Xiaochen nodded and said, "Manor Lord Fei invited us to the ceremony in the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion. I had some matters to attend to, so I came late." That person smiled humbly and said, "The two of you are indeed late. The ceremony should have started already. Let me bring the two of you to the viewing platform." Not only did the green-robed cultivator not show any intention of stopping Xiaochen and Yu Bingyun, but he even openly brought the two to the viewing platform. His service was extremely attentive. Xiaochen smiled faintly and thanked the green-robed cultivator. However, he wondered in his heart, what exactly is this Fei Lingyi up to? Clearly, this group of cultivators had been informed in advance. They were not surprised that the blue-robed emperor was here to observe the ceremony. However, the blue-robed emperor had brought forward the matter of the 15th of the next month. Based on the details, one could tell that Fei Lingyi had put in a lot of effort for the sake of breaking the heavenly cloud jadeite sword into a transcendent divine weapon. One of his goals was to blow up this matter as much as possible, to make everyone know about it and shake up the place. From the moment Xiaochen received the invitation when he entered the Black Sea, it was clear that Fei Lingyi had made preparations long ago for the sake of making things more lively. If it were a regular occasion, there would be no problem with doing so. However, breaking through from a divine weapon to a transcendent divine weapon was a major matter. Many people would be watching. If news leaked out, it might end up failing on the verge of success. That was how Yu Bingyun had gotten involved. Any ordinary person would understand such a simple principle. Yu Bingyun said that this person was arrogant, thinking that he would definitely succeed. Hence, he was not afraid of inviting more people. Xiaochen acknowledged the former. This Fei Lingyi was extraordinarily arrogant. However, Xiaochen did not agree with the latter. Xiaochen had a guess. This Fei Lingyi's main goal was not to succeed in breaking through to a transcendent divine weapon but to blow up the matter. It would be best if it caused a bloody storm. However, Xiaochen was not very confident of this guess. Logically speaking, doing so would not benefit Fei Lingyi at all. "We've arrived." The Jadeite Mountain Manor's cultivator led the two to their seats in the viewing platform. Then, he bowed and took his leave. Xiaoqin collected his thoughts and returned the bow politely. Then, he sat down together with Yu Bingyun. Thousands of people filled the viewing platform. Nearly all the blue-robed emperors of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion had rushed over. There were even some blue-robed emperors who had not gone to the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion. It was unknown where they got the news and rushed over. A few thousand meters away from the observation platform was a spacious open space, on which a magnificent formation was constructed using various godly materials. The formation patterns flickered endlessly with a multicolored light. The aura of divine materials spread out in the air, attracting everyone's attention and making them sigh in amazement. This Fei Lengyi is serious. The entire viewing platform is covered in black patterned gold. There must be at least 500 tons of it. This is the most basic. Look at the veins of the formation patterns. They are all sorts of precious divine materials. There are at least 100 of them. He is practically using all the capital that the Jadeite sovereign left for him. If he does not succeed, he will have suffered a great loss. There was an altar at the center of the formation. A scarlet sword was stabbed into the blazing flames. A sparkling jadeite was embedded in the sword hilt. Even the dense flames could not hide the light of the jadeite, which occasionally gave off a few beams of light. This was a dazzling light, comparable to the noon sun, deterring people from looking at it directly. This was a jadeite that the Jadeite sovereign obtained after refining a planet in the depths of the starry heavens. It contained boundless energy. Rumor had it that there was only one in the world and was exceptionally precious. Even Emperor Wu was tempted by it. Chapter 1151. Xiao Chen's gaze pierced through the flames. However, what he paid more attention to was the scarlet sword that gave off a lot of light. The sword gave off a steady scarlet light like it was alive. The flickering light seemed like blood flowing in the arteries, making one think that this sword was not an inanimate object but a living being. Xiaoqin could not help but think of the previous owner of this sword, the Blood Sword Sovereign, a legendary martial emperor who was even more dazzling than the Thunder Fire Sovereign in the Black Sea. The ceremony had already begun. Many sword refiners gathered around the formation. These sword refiners bared their upper bodies and had grave expressions. All of them had clumps of golden flames leaping about wildly in their hands. These were the weapon flames that these Grandmaster swordsmiths spent their entire lives refining. They were extremely precious and were specially used to forge all sorts of spirit weapons. At Fei Lingyi's command, the various swordsmiths formed profound hand seals and sent their weapon flames into the nodes of the formation. In that instant, the five-colored formation, which used the black patterned gold as the foundation and various divine materials, quickly ignited. Crackling sounds rang out continuously. The toughness of the divine materials could only be ignited by a weapon flame. As the weapon flame crackled, several of the spectating blue-robed emperors' hearts thumped involuntarily. The light of the flames was very beautiful. However, they were not burning waste paper but genuine divine materials, large amounts of black astral coins, equivalent to the wealth of an ordinary Emperor Wu. Even Xiaoqin felt some heartache for this manor lord. Even he did not have the courage to watch these divine materials burn before him without changing his expression. As the flames burned, the divine materials turned into a crystalline liquid that flowed through the formation. Then, they followed a predetermined path to the flame altar in the center. The Grandmaster swordsmiths all showed nervous expressions, not daring to be careless as they controlled the weapon flame. Boom! When all the divine materials poured into the altar, the flame on the altar suddenly soared. A pillar of fire soared into the clouds, instantly piercing through the dark clouds that lingered in the sky. The flames burned so brightly that even the dark clouds began to burn. A large area of sunlight was no longer blocked by the clouds, and it poured down unstintingly. In the dark Blackwater City, the sunlight in the Jadeite Mountain Manor was as eye-catching as holy light. It attracted the attention of the hundreds of millions of cultivators in the city. It was no exaggeration to say that hundreds of millions of people were watching. The blue-robed emperor of the Black Sea, who hadn't seen sunlight for a long time, looked at the sky greedily. He squinted his eyes and looked at the eternal sun outside the barrier of the sky. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A moment later, a divine might spread out from the altar and the celestial cloud jadeite sword began to tremble slightly. Everyone quickly retracted their gazes and focused on the altar. Their expressions were rather nervous and they did not even dare to breathe too loudly. At this time, Xiaochen only focused his attention on two people. One was Yu Bingyun, who remained calm and unperturbed. At this moment, he could not help showing some nervousness on his face as he stared at the heptagold origin in Fei Lingyi's hand. There was nothing surprising about this. This was Yu Bingyun's true emotions. If she was not nervous at all at this moment, it would be truly strange. This was truly strange. Xiaochen even suspected that this woman was not from the lunar palace. However, Fei Lingyi's gaze surprised him. Although Fei Lingyi's gaze was fixed on the altar, Xiaochen clearly discovered that Fei Lingyi's true gaze was wandering around the place. He seemed to be searching for something somewhat anxiously. However, Fei Lingyi's gaze surprised Xiaochen. After searching for a long time, Fei Lingyi did not find anything. He revealed a clear expression of disappointment. This greatly shocked Xiaochen. He wondered if he saw wrong. Fei Lingyi had not even reached the final step, so why was he disappointed? However, this disappointed expression only appeared for an instant before vanishing. Xiaochen could no longer find it. Fei Lingyi laughed self-mockingly in his heart. Then, his lips moved, and he tossed the heptagold origin in his hand at the altar without hesitation. Fei Lingyi's actions seemed to contain some resentment, filled with rage. If he had not carefully suppressed it, given his half-step Emperor Wu's cultivation, this aura would have been extremely terrifying. After seeing Fei Lingyi toss out the heptagold origin, Yu Bingyun's expression relaxed completely compared to the extremely anxious blue-robed emperor. Xiaochen frowned heavily. He guessed something in his heart. He figured out what Fei Lingyi's lips were mumbling to himself. The lip language was, "After 15 years of preparation, I pierced through the sky. However, I still do not receive your gaze. In that case, let a bloody storm descend on the entire Black Sea." However, everyone's gazes were attracted by the heptagold origin in Fei Lingyi's hand. No one noticed this lip language at all. Only Xiaochen happened to notice it. Whoosh! Whoosh! The heptagold origin spun as it flew to the altar. Whether the heavenly cloud jadeite sword could successfully advance into a transcendent divine weapon and kick up a bloody storm would be revealed in a few breaths. The gazes of the more than 1,000 blue-robed emperors all focused on the heptagold origin shining with light. In the eyes of these blue-robed emperors, the speed at which the heptagold origin spun was very clear. All of them held their breaths, raising their heads in anticipation. However, Xiaochen had a bad feeling in his heart. He glanced at Yu Bingyun beside him and saw the power of the world around her move rapidly, forming a strong, formless wind. A terrifying aura brewed continuously. Xiaochen thought to himself, something is wrong. He quickly looked at the heptagold origin, but all he saw was a scarlet light bursting out of it. Before the more than 1,000 gazes, the heptagold origin that fell into the altar did not merge into the heavenly cloud jadeite sword as everyone expected. Instead, the instant the heptagold origin fell into the altar, it exploded, instantly destroying the altar. The shockwaves spread throughout the refining formation, rumbling endlessly. The heavenly cloud jadeite sword stabbed into the altar trembled intensely, giving off a dazzling scarlet light. A horrifying divine might spread out from the sword. The scarlet light grew increasingly brighter, piercing and dazzling. The sword that absorbed hundreds of divine materials seemed to reach a critical point, no longer able to maintain its balance. Everyone's expressions changed drastically. At this moment, everyone knew that something was wrong with the heptagold origin. This heavenly cloud jadeite sword was going to explode. What kind of horrifying destructive power would the explosion of a divine weapon produce? Just thinking about the consequences made everyone tremble in fear, sending a chill down their backs. Quickly run. The divine weapon is going to explode. Amidst the bloody light, everyone panicked and retreated without hesitation. However, it was too late to retreat now. Nearly at the same time the heptagold origin landed on the altar, the heavenly cloud jadeite sword exploded. A scarlet shock wave containing divine might surged out in all directions. There was no time to prepare. The shock wave immediately knocked several blue-robed emperors into the air. Some of the weaker ones suffered severe injuries from the explosion. They vomited blood endlessly, and their complexions paled. The blue-robed emperor could stir up the clouds with just a raise of his hand. However, before this scarlet light, he appeared incredibly weak. The instant the scarlet light surged over, Xiaoqin activated 3,000 heavenly laws in 1,000th of an instant. He drove the vast power of the world and formed a dense protective shield in front of him. Even though Xiao Chen's reaction was fast, his qi and blood still surged. After vomiting a mouthful of blood, he felt much better. When Xiao Chen looked around, there was no longer a single small perfection blue-robed emperor standing. The great perfection blue-robed emperor standing was in a sorry state, with many wounds on his body. Only the blue-robed emperors at the gates remained standing, suffering only minor injuries. Yu Bingyun calmly scattered the power of the world before her as she asked Xiao Chen, "Are you all right?" Xiao Chen smiled coldly when he saw Yu Bingyun, who appeared to be unscathed and looked even more relaxed than those consummation blue-robed emperors. Since Yu Bingyun was not injured at all, it was naturally not because she was stronger than those consummation blue-robed emperors. Instead, it was because she had anticipated this. She was the one who arranged for the tampered heptagold origin to be auctioned off, all for the sake of tricking Fei Lingyi. No wonder this woman was fearless from the start, not showing any nervousness at all. So, that was the case. Now, everything came to light. This woman was truly incredible. Her boldness was flabbergasting. Unexpectedly, she thought of such a decisive method, directly destroying a divine weapon. From start to end, when Xiao Chen thought about it carefully, he felt a lingering fear. After wiping away the blood from a corner of his lips, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "No wonder Miss Bingyun was so fearless. This Xiao really underestimated you. For you to be able to become the Lunar Palace's holy daughter, you are indeed extraordinary. Admirable. Are you mocking me? I don't dare." Yu Bingyun smiled faintly and said calmly, "You are still too naive. Right now, the peak factions of the oceanic world are in a delicate balance. This Fei Lingyi simply does not know what the consequences will be if my lunar palace loses the startling phoenix Sither. Several factions much stronger than his jadeite mountain manor do not dare to rashly refine a transcendent divine weapon. They are afraid of stirring up a commotion between the major factions, resulting in chaos. No one can bear such a consequence." When Xiao Chen heard this, he felt stunned. However, he quickly calmed down. Actually, he did not disagree with Yu Bingyun's actions. If he were in Yu Bingyun's shoes, he would have done the same. Different positions had different standpoints. In the end, Xiao Chen was angry at the other party for not telling him in advance. Xiao Chen looked at Fei Lingyi. He was the closest to the altar and had blocked most of the might of the divine weapon's explosion. Fei Lingyi lay on the ground, covered in blood. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. The broken sword had melted into a blood cocoon above the altar, floating in the air. It was unknown what it contained. On top of the blood cocoon, there was a sparkling and translucent jadeite that emitted a deep blue light. This piece of divine jadeite forged from a star had a unique charm. Several of the great perfection blue-robed emperors were tempted, revealing greedy expressions in their eyes. Whoosh! 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 When three great perfection blue-robed emperors saw Fei Lingyi lying on the ground, they could not help flying into the air, wanting to grab this piece of divine jadeite. Scram! A shout rang out, and Fei Lingyi, who was on the ground, suddenly soared up. Then, he threw 3 palm strikes. The mountains and rivers of the jadeite mountain manor seemed to move under the force of these 3 palm strikes, merging with the mountains and rivers. Chapter 1152. These 3 simple palm strikes materialized mountains and rivers, layered over each other and sending back the 3 great perfection blue-robed emperors. Fei Lingyi stretched out his hand and firmly grasped the jadeite. Then, he released his aura. The strong accumulations of a half-step emperor will put pressure on everyone. You are really bold. To think that you dare to target me in my jadeite mountain manor. Even if you obtained this jadeite, would you dare to use it? Fei Lingyi snorted coldly. The 3 great perfection blue-robed emperors who landed immediately felt the pressure multiply. When the others heard this, they startled awake. This jadeite was refined by the jadeite sovereign. Unless one was a sovereign martial emperor, one could erase the jadeite sovereign's mark. Otherwise, if one was not a descendant of the jadeite sovereign's bloodline, one would not be able to use it. That would only bring disaster to oneself. After the 3 got up, they did not say anything more and quickly fled. Fei Lingyi ignored them. He swept his gaze through the many blue-robed emperors before fixing it on Yu Bingyun. He said indifferently, the Lunar Palace's people are indeed better. You even managed to bribe the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's people. This Fei is convinced of my loss this time. Everyone, please disperse. I've let you all watch a joke. At this point, how could Fei Lingyi not figure out that the heptagold origin was a trap laid by the Lunar Palace and the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion? Yu Bingyun smiled but showed no intention of leaving. She looked at the blood cocoon in the air and said, in the ancient records of my Lunar Palace, the life and death art that the blood sword sovereign used to condense the heart of an emperor in advance is very likely to be hidden in this heavenly blood sword. The moment Yu Bingyun said that, several of the blue-robed emperors preparing to leave stopped. This was especially so for those consummation blue-robed emperors. As they looked at the large blood cocoon, a boundless light appeared in their eyes. The blood sword sovereign was a legendary martial emperor of his generation. He had left behind countless legends. Naturally, what the descendants remembered the most was that he condensed the heart of an emperor before he became Emperor Wu. When Yu Bingyun said that the life and death art might be hidden in this blood cocoon, how could the blue-robed emperor not be moved? Even Xiaoqun couldn't help but be tempted. When Fei Lingyi heard this, his heart skipped a beat. His pale expression changed indeterminately. To think that there was such a secret. He had held the Heaven Cloud Jadeite sword for several hundred years, but he had never noticed it. Is that so? Hee, then I'll leave it to you to keep it safe for a while. If anything happens, please let me know. Fei Lingyi did something that exceeded everyone's expectations. He stretched out his hand, and the mysterious blood cocoon quickly flew towards Yu Bingyun. Yu Bingyun's expression changed. Before she could figure out what was going on, the blood cocoon appeared before her. She reflexively grabbed the blood cocoon. When the crimson blood cocoon fell into his hand and he felt the murderous gazes directed at him, he came to his senses. Cursing inwardly, he pulled Xiaoqun and flew away. Let's go. Before Xiaoqun could react, Yu Bingyun had already pulled him away. When he looked back, he saw more than 300 great perfection blue-robed emperors and 10-odd consummation blue-robed emperors frantically chasing after them. The extraordinarily bustling jadeite mountain manor instantly emptied out, no one remained. Fei Lingyi withdrew his half-step Emperor Wu's strong aura. Then, he vomited a large mouthful of blood and knelt to the ground. Manor Lord, are you all right? An attendant in the mountain manor quickly came over to support Fei Lingyi, asking with an extremely worried expression. Earlier, he had wondered why Fei Lingyi had given away the blood cocoon formed by the heavenly cloud sword fragment. Now, it looked like Fei Lingyi had no choice but to give it away. After enduring most of the destructive force of the divine weapon's shattering, he was severely injured. Given his previous temper, he definitely would not have let off those 3 great perfection blue-robed emperors who wanted the jadeite. Fei Lingyi waved his hand and pushed that person away. He said, I'm fine. Send someone to keep a close eye on Yu Bingyun's movements. Tell me immediately if the blood sword sovereign left a secret technique in the blood cocoon or not. All right. Under Fei Lingyi's insistence, that person had no choice but to leave. However, Before he left, he glanced at Fei Lingyi worriedly. Fei Lingyi looked helplessly at the sky. The scattered dark clouds were already slowly gathering. Only a final ray of light shone on him, making him look strangely sorrowful. He still could not see him. He did not come at all. Even after preparing for 15 years and tearing through the sky, he still hardened his heart and did not come, unwilling to see this grandson of his. Even though he was so severely injured, nearly dying, he still did not show up. Before Fei Lingyi's gaze, the thick dark clouds slowly gathered. Outside the barrier of the sky, which was tens of thousands of meters taller than the dark clouds, a man and a woman stood on a small planet floating in the universe. They did not do anything, but they forcefully deviated this small planet from its trajectory and stopped it from moving. The man's face was like jade. His eyes were like stars and gems, and his long hair fluttered in the wind. He looked like he was only in his 20s. This person's aura was extraordinary, like an immortal from the immortal epoch, drifting like an immortal. The woman was very beautiful. Her skin was as white as snow, looking delicate and fragile. She had a noble air, graceful, and elegant. Ribbons circled behind her gorgeous dress, and a bright moon vaguely appeared behind her. If Fei Lingyi and Yu Bingyun were here, they would definitely recognize these two. These two were the famous Jadeite sovereign and the Lunar Palace's current palace master. One was a famous sovereign martial emperor of the Black Sea, and the other was the uncrowned queen of the heavenly starry ocean, a powerful prime. You are really extraordinarily ruthless. For the sake of meeting you, he caused such a huge commotion, and yet you did not show anything, the Lunar Palace's palace master said indifferently after withdrawing her gaze. A complicated look flashed in the Jadeite sovereign's eyes. After a while, he sighed and said, I know why he is looking for me. He wants me to help him advance to Emperor Wu and live for another 500 years. A complicated look flashed in the Jadeite sovereign's eyes. After a while, he sighed and said, I know why he is looking for me. He wants me to help him advance to Martial Emperor and live for another 500 years. He does not have sufficient luck. If I act rashly and go against the heavenly Tao to help him advance, I will only die a more miserable death in the end. He doesn't have enough luck. If I act rashly and go against the heavenly Tao to help him advance, I will only die a more miserable death. The Jadeite sovereign smiled carefreely and said, let's not talk about this anymore. Many thanks for your help this time. Otherwise, who knows what kind of disaster it would have led to. The Jadeite sovereign smiled carefreely and said, let's not talk about this anymore. Many thanks for your help this time. Otherwise, who knows what kind of disaster it would have led to. Fei Lingyi only cared about his preparations. He did not know that the news had leaked out long ago. He also did not know what kind of huge waves his rash actions had kicked up in Emperor Wu's circle. If not for the Jadeite sovereign and the Lunar Palace's palace master working together to suppress this matter, sending only Yu Bingyun to deal with it, he would have died several times already. But then again, the successor you've chosen is indeed bold. He directly blew up the divine weapon. Back then, I spent a lot of effort to reforge the heavenly blood sword. When the Lunar Palace's palace master heard the Jadeite sovereign mention Yu Bingyun, she revealed a smile on her face. She only took the Jadeite sovereign's words as praise. How is it? What do you think of me as the successor? Shrewdness, scheming, boldness, luck, and talent are all top-notch. She can ensure that the Lunar Palace will not be defeated for 1,000 years. However, the Jadeite sovereign suddenly stopped halfway through his sentence. The Lunar Palace's palace master raised her head and asked, however what? The Jadeite sovereign smiled and continued, however, when he stands beside the Qing Emperor's descendant, he is still somewhat inferior. He does not have the pride that comes from the depths of his bones. He also lacks the air of a ruler that comes from the inside out, able to withdraw as he pleases. Did you notice that this youth's elegance is already no weaker than that of the Qing Emperor back then? He might even surpass it. His overwhelming luck is even more enviable. When the Lunar Palace's palace master heard this, she revealed a slightly displeased expression. It was not that she lacked magnanimity or self-restraint. However, the Jadeite sovereign's evaluation of this person had something to do with the Qing emperor. This made it hard for the Lunar Palace's palace master to erase the grudge in her heart. If it were another youth, the Lunar Palace's palace master would not show such an expression. You are right. However, no matter what, he only has 4 years left. In the end, he will pass by like a meteor. Not to mention becoming the Qing emperor, any outstanding talent in this age of geniuses will be stronger than him. The Jadeite sovereign knew a little about what the Qing emperor did to the Lunar Palace. Seeing that the Lunar Palace's palace master's emotions were deep, he did not pursue this topic. Oh, right, is there really the life and death art that the blood sword sovereign left in the heavenly blood sword? The Lunar Palace's palace master asked with interest when she thought of this matter. The Jadeite sovereign shook his head and replied, how can that be? If there really was, I would have taken it out long ago. There is only a map in there. The location is a cave where the blood sword sovereign cultivated in the past. As for whether the life and death art is in there or not, I do not know. How can you not know? Could it be that you have never been there before? I really have not been there before. During the blood sword sovereign's era, the entire Black Sea continent was still intact. Even now, although we know that the location is still on Blackwater Island, the world has changed many times. Even a geomaster would have to spend a lot of effort to figure it out. After a pause, the Jadeite sovereign continued, furthermore, even if we find the life and death art, it would be useless to Emperor Wu. Even the blue-robed emperor would find it extremely difficult to use this secret technique to condense a heart of an emperor. Not everyone has the blood sword sovereign's physique, excellent comprehension ability, and extraordinary willpower. When the Lunar Palace's palace master heard this, she immediately lost much of her interest. In that case, I'll take my leave first. I'll leave the matters here to these juniors. She pushed off the ground, and the ribbons behind her fluttered. Then, her gorgeous figure vanished into the vast starry heavens. As the Jadeite sovereign stood in the starry heavens, he glanced at Fei Lingyi from a great distance. He muttered, you will never understand. In the end, a butterfly needs to turn into a cocoon before it can spread its wings. If I help you break that cocoon, how can you truly fly? Sometimes, you have to learn to let go of the emperor's road. Shaking his head, the Jadeite sovereign pushed off with his feet, and his graceful figure vanished into the vast starry heavens. Bang! The instant the Jadeite sovereign left, the small planet that had been out of orbit for too long instantly exploded, turning into countless meteors charging at the barrier of the sky. They burned with light and heat, releasing a boundlessly resplendent light. Chapter 1153. The meteor was indeed beautiful. Unfortunately, it lasted only an instant, disappearing in a flash. Even the Lunar Palace's palace master did not think highly of Xiao Qin. At this moment, for the sake of avoiding becoming a meteor, he frantically fled with Yu Bingyun on Blackwater Island. The large group of blue-robed emperors pursuing the two did not stop for even a moment. Even after the two used all their tricks and schemes, they still could not shake off this group of frenzied blue-robed emperors. To the blue-robed emperor, condensing the heart of an emperor in advance was a great temptation. No matter what, he would not give up. Xiao Qin was in a sorry state from the chase. He even had several wounds on his body. If there were only 10 odd people, he believed that he could handle them. However, there were hundreds of blue-robed emperors chasing him. There were even several consummation blue-robed emperors. Xiao Qin simply could not do anything about it. Never mind, I give up. Xiao Qin, who was speeding through the air, suddenly stopped and said. Yu Bingyun asked, finding it strange, are you sure? If you insist, I have a trump card to shake off these troublesome fellows. Xiao Qin smiled and said, thank you for your kind intentions. I have a trump card as well. However, I really cannot monopolize this thing. Otherwise, the two of us will fall for Fei Lingyi's trap. Xiao Qin grabbed the mysterious blood cocoon in Yu Bingyun's hand. Then, he turned around and raised it high. Whoever makes a move, I will directly destroy it. The moment Xiao Qin said that, the group of people frantically chasing after Xiao Qin with surging auras immediately stopped anxiously. The hundreds of blue-robed emperors eyed Xiao Qin covetously, stirring up winds and clouds in the surroundings. Their auras were so strong that they nearly could not stand up. Little friend, there is no need to be nervous. Hand over the blood cocoon formed by the fragments of the heavenly cloud sword, and we will naturally not make things difficult for you. The one who spoke was a consummation blue-robed emperor. Xiao Qin had some impression of this person. His name was Jin Liangqi. He had seen this person in action in front of the testing monument. He was able to light up 9 of the 10 purple gems on the 6th row. Among the great perfection blue-robed emperors, his strength was at the top. Xiao Qin admitted that he was not as strong as the other party, but he did not show the slightest bit of fear. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he said with a smile, "Hand it over. Hand it over to you and let you take it away." That was exactly what he wanted to say. Just as Jin Liangqi was about to say yes, he suddenly noticed many unfriendly gazes looking at him. Cursing in his heart, he smiled awkwardly, "Of course not. It's the right way to share it with everyone. Otherwise, no matter who gets it, there will inevitably be a fierce battle, and it will benefit an outsider." Xiao Qin glanced at the mysterious blood cocoon in his hand. Then, he looked at the many blue-robed emperors. Even when facing so many blue-robed emperors, he did not show any stage fright. "Very well. What Senior Jin said is actually what I wanted to say as well. No one can monopolize the secret of the life and death art. If everyone has no problems, I can choose to cut open this blood cocoon now and see if there is the life and death art inside." The surroundings fell silent. Clearly, there were still some misgivings. After all, the blood cocoon was in Xiao Qian's hands. Even if there was the life and death art inside, it was still up to him to decide whether to split it or not. Xiao Qian smiled faintly and said, "What's wrong? Are you afraid that I will continue to run after taking the life and death art? If I really wanted to keep it for myself, I wouldn't have stopped. I've already said this much. Whether you are willing or not, I will cut it open now." He could not be bothered with this group of paranoid old monsters who were overthinking things. Xiao Qin used his palm as a saber, not giving these people a chance to retort. He hacked down, and the 40% comprehended saber soul in his sea of consciousness spread throughout his body. A horrifying saber intent spread out. Xiao Qian's clothes and hair fluttered, giving off melodious tinkling sounds. The boundless saber intent was like zither music spreading out in all directions. Xiao Qian's move stunned several blue-robed emperors. A strange light flashed in their eyes. For this white-robed bladesman to last so long under the pursuit of so many blue-robed emperors, he was indeed extraordinary. Pu Ci. A saber light flickered, and Xiao Qian's hand saber neatly cut open the mysterious scarlet blood cocoon without leaving a mark. Instantly, a scarlet light spread out, looking like blood spreading everywhere. The blood cocoon slowly melted, thickening the scarlet light and forming a blood mist. A floating drawing appeared on Xiao Qian's palm. He was somewhat surprised. The blood cocoon was not empty, nor was it the life and death art. It was just an ancient drawing that looked like a map. "Brat, quickly hand over the drawing. Hurry up. Otherwise, you can forget about leaving this place alive." The blue-robed emperors did not care whether this drawing had anything to do with the life and death art or not. When the map appeared, they immediately roared. Xiao Qin ignored them. He opened the drawing and took a look. After memorizing it, he quickly pushed the drawing out. "Let's go." Not wanting to care about this group of blue-robed emperors, Xiao Qin called out to Yu Bingyun and quickly left. Seeing the drawing floating over, the excited blue-robed emperors cautiously quietened down. If anyone dared to make a move, they would destroy this drawing in the chaos. Jin Liangqi's gaze was like lightning. He did not make a move, just taking a look as well. After memorizing the contents of the drawing, he left quietly. At the blue-robed emperor's level, nearly everyone had a photographic memory. As the various blue-robed emperors memorized the contents of the drawing, the number of blue-robed emperors decreased. In the end, not a single one remained, leaving only this lonely treasure map drifting down. Speaking of which, this was rather laughable. Earlier, everyone had chased after this item crazily. However, when they discovered that it was just a drawing, no one went to take it in, leaving it to drift everywhere. In a large courtyard in Blackwater City, Xiaoqin took out a brush and paper. Then, he drew out everything he had memorized, word for word. He gently blew on the brush and dried the ink. Then, Xiaoqin and Yu Bingyun carefully observed it. This is a map. Based on the red mark, it should be a cave. Combined with the blood sword sovereign's identity, the answer is clear. This map records a cave that the blood sword sovereign once cultivated in. After observing for a long time, Yu Bingyun quickly came to a conclusion. Xiaoqin did not deny it. This was the most superficial information. Practically everyone who obtained the drawing could figure it out. The difficult part was not this. The difficult part was the path on the map. After tens of thousands of years, the world had changed. The landscape had changed a few times, and the routes and landmarks on the map had long since disappeared. Trying to find the Blood Sword Sovereign's cave by relying on this map was no less than a fantasy. It was impossible. Clearly, Yu Bingyun knew this as well. After some thought, she said, "We have to find an old man familiar with the Black Sea's terrain and draw out a rough outline of the cave. After that, we have to find a geomaster to observe the geography and geomancy, figuring out where the cave is." Xiaoqin nodded. This was the only way. He said, "You can handle the first part. There's no need to find a geomaster for the latter part." "What do you mean?" Xiaoqin smiled and said, "Although I'm just a dabbling geomaster, I believe that my skill far surpasses the average." Yu Bingyun's eyes lit up. Finding it strange, she said, "I couldn't tell. I really don't know what you don't know. There are many things that I don't know. For example, I do not have the courage to waste a heptagold origin to blow up a divine weapon." Yu Bingyun felt stifled. Unexpectedly, Xiaoqin was still angry at her for not informing him in advance. She put away the map and rolled her eyes at him. Then, she said, "I can't be bothered with you. After I figure out the rough location, I'll come and look for you, a geomaster." After the other party left, Xiaoqin took out 100 superior-grade demon fiend rocks from the universe ring. He muttered, 100 superior-grade demon fiend rocks should be sufficient to raise my 40% comprehended saber soul to 50% comprehended. This saber soul is really difficult to advance." As Xiaoqin and Yu Bingyun made their preparations, the entire Blackwater City turned chaotic. The news of the map spread like wildfire. Nearly all the blue-robed emperors in Blackwater City were startled. Each of those blue-robed emperors was more intelligent than the last. Soon, they came to a similar conclusion as Yu Bingyun. They started to search for skilled geomasters, wanting to enter the cave first. Regardless of whether there was any information about the life and death art in the cave, everyone knew that they would not return empty-handed after going to the cave where the Blood Sword Sovereign once cultivated. Inside the Xia clan's courtyard, Xia Luo and Wang Zhen studied the map. Their faces filled with wild joy. Xia Luo smiled and said, "As long as I obtain the life and death art and condense the heart of an emperor in advance, I am confident of advancing to martial emperor within 10 years. Similarly, Wang Zhen could not hide the joy on his face. "After condensing the heart of an emperor, I will be 99% confident of undergoing my great tribulation of wind and fire." "Oh, by the way, second young master, should we inform first young master and the main clan of this news?" Xia Luo thought for a while before shaking his head. "No. The Dark Sea is too far from us. By the time the main clan's people arrive, they will be much too late. Our own strength is sufficient." At the same time, Jiang Feng held the map. His face also filled with joy. "Originally, I just wanted to join in on the excitement of the auction. Unexpectedly, I managed to obtain such a harvest. If I condense the heart of an emperor and return to Dark City, I will be able to sweep through all the outstanding talents of the younger generation. Everyone moved quickly, afraid of being too slow. The area of the cave shrank. In the end, they determined that it was to the west of Blackwater Island. However, the size of Blackwater Island was already no smaller than a small continent. This area was still rather large. As for the rest, they could only rely on geomasters to observe the geography. 4 days passed. Xiaoqin successfully used 100 superior-grade demon fiend rocks to temper his 40% comprehended saber soul to 50% comprehension. Every time his saber soul increased by 10%, its might would improve significantly. His gaze would become sharper, and his aura sharper. With just one look, he could frighten his opponent. However, the further he went, the harder it would be to raise his saber soul. As Xiaoqin had never used a demon fiend rock before, the effect this time was very obvious. If he used it a second time, the effect would be significantly weaker. This was unless he used a peak-grade demon fiend rock that moved even Emperor Wu. Of course, speaking of which, now that Xiaoqin had a 5th saber soul and was in the blue-robed Emperor realm, he could already look down on everyone. If Xiaoqian's other states, thunder, death, massacre, despair, and grief, were taken into account, he would be even more unfathomable. In battle, he would have many wondrous effects that mysterious phenomena could not achieve.